Welcome to the Junkyard Love Podcast.
At what age do we learn how to have better conversations? At what age do we learn to have better conversations with ourselves?
Howdy doody, my cat dogs. Welcome to the Junkyard Love Podcast. Real quick, before we get popping, the first 30 minutes or so of this episode is in regards to the event that is premiering this weekend that we're posting this September 19th. If you're listening to the after, feel free to skip through that, or if you want to hear how we set up an event and how we made this virtual stream happen, it's all good info. Toasty explains kind of what we get going on, but if you're here for the rest of it, feel free to skip around and listen to what you'd like. In this episode, we kind of talk about a lot of the DJ creative process, kind of the mind behind things, substances, suicide, depression, our experiences, Toasty's experiences as being a DJ for 25 plus years. The whole thing's packed full of greatness. So I hope you enjoy. If you'd like to watch our live stream on Saturday, if you're listening to this beforehand, we would love to have you. Hope you have a good time. Enjoy the podcast. Take care of yourself. And we're live.
Are we broadcasting live?
We are broadcasting live.
Like glow in the dark broadcasting live.
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
live, but later live. That was the thing, is like explaining to people. Wait, so it's not a live stream, but it's just a stream, and
right.
It's like their brain is like doesn't compute.
Yeah, it was. No, we're broadcasting. There's a slight broadcast delay.
Yeah. But having that extra time, I mean, just like running, because I've done some live stream. Well, I've done one big live stream for the
Texas thing, right?
Yeah, I was out in Texas, and that one was it's weird because it had the stress of a live show. Yeah. Like you still like the jitters, like right before it goes, because it's like if you mess up, it's live. People still hear it, but yes. It's weird when there's no crowd.
Yeah,
but I'm glad that we did it the way that we did it for Glow in the Dark. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Junkyard Love Podcast. Today we have my friend Brian on, and we want to talk about Glow in the Dark first and foremost. This is an event that we just did. We shot all the footage and did all the things. We set it all up, and we did it.
Yeah,
and it's done.
Yeah,
but Brian took a lot of time to edit it and put it all together. So on September 19th, we have a show, and it's edited nicely, and it looks real good.
It sounds good too.
Sounds real good.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brian, I do want to get into your background. We have plans to talk about some mental health stuff. We want to talk about some suicide stuff, just some real talks that we've experienced in our life, being DJs. You've been a DJ for quite some time. You have a lot more years on me, but we'll start it out with Glow in the Dark. So what is Glow in the Dark?
All right. So last time that we had a podcast, we had Kelly, our good friend. He was on with us, and we were talking about at the end of the podcast, later stages in your DJ career, and wanting to be able to play, the music that you like, that you love, that you want to share with people. And as DJs, I'm going to be honest, the normal working DJ isn't always playing 100% the music that they really love or that they want to share with people. And so, what we talked about was a lot of these guys that are getting long in the tooth. I've been doing this for 25 plus years. They start throwing their own night. They start putting their own party together. They start building something that obviously they're the center entertainer for, but they allows them to start exposing people to music that they love and start sharing it. And if it's huge, that's great. If it's not huge, then you're still having a good time and you're still loving it. And so Glow in the Dark for me, I'm really good friends with the owners of a couple of venues in town, and I kind of pitched the idea to them, saying, "Hey, I want to," it started out as a blacklight party, and so it was something unique, and so we threw the first one, and it was very mainstream, top 40 hip hop. The music really didn't differ from what the venue would normally be playing. And so everybody loved it. The staff really loved it. Tips were astronomical. The owners loved it. The sales were great. The guests love it. It just went over really well. So I got permission to do another one. Mm-hmm. So the next one, anything that I do, I want to make sure that the next time that I do it, that I'm challenging myself in some small way.
I love that about you.
And not that I have to be, the best at something, but I definitely don't want to just do the same thing that I did last time. Mm-hmm. Last time was successful. That's great. But to basically hang our hat on, oh yeah, we did so well, and there were so many people that came through the door last time. That's not really what I'm about. And so the second one that we did, I pushed music programming a little bit more. Wasn't as mainstream. Had Kelly. He came and did basically the stage manager / roadie for me. Helped me set up. We brought in more equipment, more lighting, more complex lighting, more than just quote black lights, more sound. So then the third one, I said, how can we improve on it? Because the first two were just the quote DJ Toasty show. I said, let's pull people in that I think are good for the event, that can bring in energy. And so we booked Kelly. And Kelly, I did an opening set. Kelly did a mid set, kind of warmed up, and then I did a closing set. And then we brought in way more lights and way more sound. And so that's kind of where we're at. And so then before COVID, we had one scheduled for April. It was, supposed to be, quote, my birthday party. We had an opportunity to link with you. And so that was my opportunity. I mean, one, we were going to do way more lights, and we were going to bring in professional lasers and all that piece, the production value, but it allowed me then to work with multiple artists of different skill sets and backgrounds, and how to basically make the night with multiple people rather than just me, quote, controlling from start to finish. Mm-hmm. And so that's a skill set that I hadn't used for quite a while. I used to be a music director, and I would work with DJs and let them know what to play, but it had been a while since I had worked with multiple talented individuals that were actually performing, and basically bringing them into what my vision was. And the cool thing is that, you, me, and Kelly, we've had quite a long conversations, over beers over the past couple months. And, we've shared tidbits between each other of where I'm hoping that Glow in the Dark will go at some point. So COVID hit, and we had to postpone the April show. And so we postponed it, and we postponed it to September. And it wasn't that big of a deal for me. It wasn't the end of the world, but then obviously COVID extended a lot longer than we were anticipating. Mm-hmm. And so about July, I was doing some live streaming stuff like most DJs, just to be able to get the creative juices going. And I was actually watching Insomniac's streams. So they're doing, virtual EDC and virtual Beyond Wonderland and virtual, Hardfest. I mean, they're just going all out. Mm-hmm. And they're kicking ass. Red Cube out of Portland, they're doing live streams, and they have it at 45 East. And so they got all the lights and the lasers going, and it was about the middle of July, and, my wife, we've been married for 15 years, very supportive of all my creative endeavors. She said, you should do a live stream. You should have, you and Kelly and Jake, because that's who you're going to plan, and we'll do a couple of lights, and we'll make it happen. Well, that really was the wrong thing to say, because she planted that seed, and I said, yeah, you're right, we should do that. And all of a sudden it turned into, I'm getting a variance, meaning a license to be able to run high level, concert level lasers. We upped the budget on the lighting rig out of Portland. We so up the lasers, up the lighting rig. We had Kelly and you, and then I said, well, how are we going to capture it? And I didn't want to do it live, because I just saw that all the challenges of doing a live event,
a full production crew to run everything. If
yeah.
It's live.
And there's three of us, and one of us would always be DJing. So it's really only two people running it. And so my concern is that something would happen. Like, we would put on this production, and we would have, hopefully, being honest, 50 to maybe 75 people watching it. Right. And then something would happen. And if something happened and it was, something that Jake, who's DJing, is the only person that could fix it, it just, to me, it didn't feel like a recipe for success. Mm-hmm. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, and I know Red Cube is doing their stuff live. I don't think Insomniac is doing their stuff live.
Yeah. Are they saying they're doing it live though?
No.
Oh.
So they aren't saying that they are broadcasting. They have changed a little bit, and I believe that they are doing what we did, which was they have a warehouse, they have a bunch of DJs, they roll them through. It might be 4:00 in the afternoon, really, and they're doing all of their post editing, and then they're posting it later. So I just wanted a really good product and something that I could, as the producer of it, be proud. And so I just said, we're going to have to record it. Well, then that opened up a whole new challenge, because I've done lighting before. I've used high-end lasers before. I've done sound before. I've done live streaming before. And so it opened up a whole new challenge that I'd never used. Mirrorless 4K high definition cameras like you use for shooting documentaries, and mm-hmm. All the recap videos that you see from these huge festivals, that level of camera work that they're doing. And so I reached out to a friend that is a really big documentaries videographer. He's got a couple Sundance appearances and multitude of awards and a couple TV shows on Amazon. His name's Anthony Gaynor. Very good long-term, or very, I've known him for a lot of years, and I knew him from when I was in Portland doing the music director piece. So he kind of just guided me a little bit. And the one piece of advice that I can give people is that if you're going to somebody to ask them for help, the analogy that I always use is, don't go to them with a box of broken parts and slide it across the desk and say, fix this for me.
Right.
When you're talking to people that are very good at what they do, and they don't have, maybe a lot of time, or you don't have a lot of money. Let's say, in my case, I didn't have a lot of money in the budget to be able to go to him and say, hey, can you tell me how to do all of this? Right. This guy's, his consulting rate is $100 an hour, and I'm asking him for a bunch of free time. And so the way that I approached it with him is that I did about 2 months of research. Like, this is what I want to do, how I want to do it. This is what Reddit's saying. This is what YouTube videos are saying, and I just kind of made a mental checklist and wrote everything out. And I went to him and I said, this is what I want to do. And this is all the research that I've done. And this is where the direction I think I want to go. Is this correct? And are there any blind spots that I'm not thinking about? And I said, and I will gladly, I jokingly said, buy you a cup of coffee, right? Well, he came back and he basically redlined, or checkmarked all of the stuff. He didn't have to do any of the thinking.
Right.
And he came back within 30 minutes. You know, he's like, da 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 da, and don't forget about this, and you could try this, and if you have any questions, let me know. And by the way, don't worry about it, but my normal rate's $100 an hour. But you know, well, I gave him $100 for his time, and so through the process of planning for the event, I hit him up multiple times. I think ended up being 3 times total. And I didn't give him $100, you know, the second time. I think it was like 25 because it was a text conversation.
Right.
And had I gone to him and said, you know, hey, I want to do this, tell me how you do you in a 30-minute email, I don't think it would have been as successful. So anyway, we got through that, and so we ended up getting all of the equipment in. And at the time, it was just going to be Jake, you know, myself, and Kelly. And I said, you know, to myself, if we're taking all this time and effort and money, I mean, there was a rental cost to it. Why not, instead of just having 3 artists, have multiple artists? And so, you know, I tapped Kelly and I said, Kelly, this is, you know, I really need quality people. I need, you know, a good DJ or good artist on top of the 3 that we have now. And just one, it was twofold. One, I wanted more involvement because we're going to have it all set up. So why not record more people, right? 2, if they were from out of town, because we're from Southwest Washington, right? It's a little bit different because if we're doing an event in Southwest Washington and we're trying to get our homies to go to a show, you know, they've got maybe a 20-minute drive max, right? So it's very regional. But now we've gone to doing a streaming event, like anybody could watch it. Anybody, you know, anybody in the world if they wanted to. And so,
tell your friends.
You don't have any friends, tell anybody.
Tell your grandma.
She'll like it. Maybe not the second set, but first set she will. So you know, it was a marketing piece as well. I wanted to get more people involved so more people would be talking about it.
Of course.
And more people regionally talking about it. So Kelly came up with, he's like, oh, we need to, you know, I'm talking with these guys for real. And I'm like, cool, what's their SoundCloud link? So, you know, I listened to it and I stalk them, you know, and they're like, oh, they did Paradiso opening party and they've done this and they've got a couple tracks that they produced out, right? I'm like, that's cool. Yeah, let's do it, right? I mean, if they aren't 100% like legit on the DJ aspect, but, you know, they've got 500 followers on SoundCloud and they've put out some pretty cool trap music, right? I'm like, let's do it. Yeah. They seem like cool guys, right? So we get them on board. And then we have, you actually reached out to Brian.
Adastra.
Yeah, Adastra. And you guys all went to school together, or at least he went to Mark Morris, right?
Yeah, I think he's a few years younger than me.
Yeah. But Kelly's good friends with them too.
Yeah. And
you're good friends with him, and he's a producer.
Yeah.
And I didn't think anything of it. You know, he got put in the fold and you know, I basically had to sell it to him. I'm like, he's like, what are we doing it for? And I said, you know, there's no money because all the money's wrapped up in production. I said, you know, they're deep down, there's a whole SaveOurStages.com movement going on where the federal government hasn't provided a lot of financial support for many industries, but including the live music industry and event venues. And so not so much benefiting me directly as a event producer, but, you know, I'm thinking as a consumer, if 45 East in Portland goes away, if Q Nightclub up in Seattle,
all these venues,
all the venues that have any shows in 7 months, right? You can only hang on for so long.
Seriously. And
so for me, it allowed me to then kind of dovetail that into, well, let's promote SaveOurStages.com. So Save Our Stages is a national effort from the National Independent venue association, NIVA, NIVA. And SaveOurStages.com is their push and their grassroots lobbying to our legislators to provide financial assistance to venues that have been closed for the past 7 months. And so that affects Roseland. It's just not EDM venues. Roseland, Doug Fir, Mississippi Studios. There's a lot of members that are part of this that they're not having touring acts coming through. They're not having you can't have shows right now, and so they have zero venue revenue coming in. So that's one of our goals with the event, is to be able to raise awareness for that. But what I told Brian was that, because he's like, "What are we doing it for?" And I mean, not nonchalantly like that. He just wanted to understand where I was coming from, and so I said, SaveOurStages.com. We're trying to raise awareness for that. I said, honestly, Kelly, Jake, and I, it's to be able to release some creativity, whether or not it's from playing music to, me being challenged, to Kelly and Jake being challenged, to do production pieces maybe that we haven't done before. So it was, I went to Brian and I was honest with him that, there's no budget for artists. Right. Nobody's getting paid. We haven't monetized this. There's no plan to monetizing it. Here's what we're spending on the production. It's going to be, what I think is probably, within our means, top notch. And I think it's going to be really fun. And I would love to have you be a part of it. And so he definitely was, on board. It was cool. So it was 2 weekends ago, wasn't it? Yeah. 2 weekends ago. So, the last weekend in August, we did a load in, of equipment on Friday. All the stuff got shipped in for the lasers and the 4K cameras and all the production and gimbals and all of that. And we got to figure out how to film with 4K cameras. And, it was me, Jake, and Kelly. We did all of the pre-production work. And I am beyond the moon. I keep talking to Kelly and Jake about, what the final product was. It is edited. It's edited in a sense that, we recorded the DJ set. It is the actual DJ set. So there are
through and through,
there, you can, if you're a DJ, you're going to listen to it and you're like, oh, they missed that transition. I have a couple flubs on mine.
We were actually DJing. There wasn't any pre-planned sets.
It's very live, and it's very raw. And I'm super excited about every artist that was involved. We were talking about this before we got started. You have that level of production and lighting and lasers, and it looks great on film. And had we had any artist or DJ that maybe needed a little bit more time practicing, I feel that every artist that you're going to watch this weekend, or on replays if we can get it, online.
To not get kicked off Twitch and YouTube.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we'll talk about that too. I think that people are just going to be blown away. The entire package is great. Considering that, on a production level, Jake, Kelly, and I are I wouldn't say we're amateurs. I mean, we have definitely experience in the field, but we're not doing big festivals.
Yeah.
And we're not part of the Insomniac crew, and so I'm excited. I'm super excited. The process was the process was very challenging. I think for all of us. I think one of the fun parts was every DJ asked me, well, what type of set do you want?
Right.
And I did this on purpose. I said, I want you to play whatever you want.
That's like a golden ticket. You're
it is.
like as when you're a DJ, you're like, what do you mean? What do you like, but who's the audience?
Right.
Like, and who do I need to please
Right.
with the music? And you're like, no, do what you want to do.
please yourself. It was cool. I think that, I think every set reflected that 100%. Cause Kelly did in the actual venue, with people in front of him, that it's not 100% EDM crowd, right? Originally. So back in September, of last year, he did his set, but it was very, I don't want to use the word safe, but it was definitely targeted towards the people that he knew that was going to be there.
Right.
And mine was, I'm going to be honest too, it was safe.
Yeah, which is still fun.
It's
still great.
It is.
So what you mean by safe versus whatever you want is like, so if I'm playing, Jake, you have an hour and just play whatever you want. Like, sure, I'm going to like the popular Lady Gaga song if there's a cool remix of it. Like,
Sure.
It's like, oh, cool, that's great. Like, I'm going to love to play that out.
Right.
But I have so many other sweet songs that nobody has ever heard that I've like found through crate digging and,
Yep.
and found through like our fun ways of finding music
Yes.
as a DJ that would bump that Lady Gaga mix quickly.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Well, and I think that, this goes into a previous podcast that we have, which was, 2 for you and 1 for me, 2 for you and 1 for me.
mhm.
And so when you have people in front of you that you are, you're trying to please them, you're trying to maintain bar sales if it's that type of environment, right? We're not big time festival DJs where people are there to see you
Right.
and what you do and, listen to a set that has 90% of tracks that you produced.
Yes.
That's just not the world that we are at. And so I think it was fun because I got to tell you guys to play whatever you want, and then you guys all overthought it. Like everybody.
Bro, I don't overthink. What are you talking about?
I just remember I think it was like 4 or 5 days out, we're all in our group chat and I'm like, how are you guys' sets coming? And you're like, I got 185 songs and I can't peel them down.
Fucking narrow them down. I
Yeah.
love them all.
Yeah.
I'm like, how can I play 185 songs in 1 hour?
Right.
How much faster can I mix?
Well, what you do is you produce the event and then you do 2 sets. That's
Oh, there you go. There you go.
That's what I did.
Yeah, because your first so for anybody who's gonna watch it, you had like a more house set
I did.
at the beginning, and it was good. It was really good. And then at the end, you have your bass set,
More of a
which is
bass set.
like more your style, which is really good.
It was.
they're both really good. I love them both.
It was fun because the cool thing that Jake did was I think it was about two weeks out, and I think you'll remember the text. Like, I'm really overwhelmed right now, and because I was not overthinking, I was just over planning every single aspect, and I'm like, Jake, I really, Kelly, I need you to take charge of something,
Mhm.
and I need you to take charge of something, so I don't feel like everything is on me. Not that once we got in the venue, it was all hands on deck. It was great.
Right.
But, the pre-planning piece, the majority of it up until that point was Toasty saying, this is what we're going to do. And I remember, I think we were about 3 days out and having that conversation about, the 185 tracks. And I said, my base set was, my closing set was, it's pre-planned. I picked out specific songs. I put them together. I ran through it multiple times, right? It's not like I'm hitting play, but I definitely put those pieces together and they match in key and the energy level.
You've played out that this song goes well with this song when I transition in these certain ways. Like sometimes the transitions will be different while
Yes.
you're replaying it live.
Yes.
But a lot of times when you're making a set like this, you're going through and you're like, oh my God, this song, the wordplay on this song, I'm going to nail it into this song.
Correct.
And then you do it and you're like, this sounds garbagey.
Right.
So you learn yes and no. And in the end, when you have what's, a pre-planned set it sounds like, I wish there was a better name for it, but
Right. Well, at least it's not pre-recorded.
Yeah, not pre-recorded. Basically, you have a your playlist is in the order that you want to play those songs.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep. But, the house set, the opening set, I think it was like almost 2 days. We were like right up on the deadline of what I would feel comfortable of. Okay, I have a planned set, and I'm like, I think I'm going to cut my set, even though all the ads and promotions said Toasty, 2 sets. That was the thing, right? And I just remember Jake going, I really hope that you do a second set. Like you should do it. Not knowing. I mean, he didn't know what was going to be in the set or what it was. He's just like, you should do it. You should do it. Just like
poking you,
agonizing me. You should do it. So the opening set it's freestyled. I put that together, and I mean, I had songs that I've been listening to for a couple weeks. I'm like, I really like these, but all of it was like if I was playing a house set for 50 people dancing. It was cool. It was really cool. But the one thing that happened, it was really cool. After everybody got off stage, it was exactly like they had just played a set in front of 2, 3, 4, 5,000 people. I'm serious. Everybody, as they got off stage, they were just walking on clouds and just amped up.
Oh, great!
It was amazing, and it accomplished, I think, what our number one goal was, which is the creativity aspect.
Right.
Yeah.
For me, when it came to planning it, because like you said, I was texting you like, dude, it's like a few days out and I haven't even like narrowed it down. I had a lot of my groupings done, and I'm like, okay, these couple songs go together. I didn't know how it was all going to fit, but it's funny because you're like free reign for like, do what you want to do.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, cool. So I've done that before. So like when I started out DJing with these outdoor renegade parties where we started with 150 people, 200 people, 300 people, we had up to 500 people at these like very illegal parties outside. But they're fucking awesome. And it was like there was some crowd pleasers for sure. Like I would like, okay, this song's hot right now. I'm gonna throw this in and I'm gonna mix it out.
Right.
We can hear Blue barking upstairs. But so it's like I'm always trying to find songs that like I don't think anybody's really heard.
Right.
I'm always trying to find remixes that I don't think anybody's heard. I'm digging deep. I'm trying to find them. But then what actually helped for me a lot was when you named it Virtual Insanity.
Yeah.
So it clicked for me, and then you showed me the graphic too, and I was like, okay. So it's like I had free reign. And then you help me narrow it down when you're like Virtual Insanity, and my brain's like, oh, I can get crazy,
Right.
So and then when you listen back, I think everybody's sets kind of like flirt with that Virtual Insanity piece of it.
Yeah.
So
no, it's cool, and we were talking before we got started. Everybody, so there's 6 sets. There's five groups, and so when you're editing, you're having to watch through, and there's multiple camera angles. And so we have, we lovingly call it the booger cam. So it's off the front of the mixer. We have a gimbal, which none of us had operated a gimbal before. Gimbal is a 3-way axis type device that keeps cameras smooth while you're moving around, and it helps create some really cool shots.
Steadicam.
Yeah. And then we have 2 static cameras. And so I know all of the sets inside and out because I listened to them 2 or 3 times each as I was editing. And then as I was working the past couple weeks, I've had them on private SoundCloud and listened through them multiple times. So I'm just excited. It's this weekend. It's been a lot of work coming up to this, but there are some really cool things that I think are in the works beyond this. Once we get out of COVID, everybody that's been involved, like immediately we're like, we need to do that again.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, hold on, let's broadcast the first one, and then we'll maybe we can have some people in front of us next time. That would be pretty awesome. But we found a new event space. That's another cool thing that's kind of come out of this. The owners They're like, I think that we could do something here on a quarterly basis. So there's definitely some seeds that have been planted outside, outside of the fact that we put together this super cool thing. Hopefully people are going to watch it. If you go to glowinthedarkevents.com, you can RSVP for it. And what that'll do is send you to the Twitch stream when it's going to broadcast. So it's Saturday from 7 p.m. until last set starts at midnight. So it's going to be a party. So, grab some beverages and some disco lights and get the big sound system. So
yeah, that's what I was trying to encourage. It was cool because I had a bunch of homies tell me and texting me and posting on socials and stuff, and just trying to encourage that, like, dude, get your closest homies together, get your festival homies together,
right?
Like, get whoever you would normally like go to a show with or go see an artist with, like, get them over to your house, get 10 people, 5 people, whatever it is, hook up that fucking sound bar, get the subs knocking. Right. Get the lights going, get the Philips Hues on,
right?
Or go on Amazon and order a $12 disco light.
Something.
Yeah, and it's gonna be super cool. I mean, it's something. And if you're listening to this after it's been premiered, it should be able.
Yeah, I think I think what'll happen is we'll go to glowinthedarkevents.com, and then that will be a jumping point for hopefully being able to see them. Mm-hmm. We're going through, honestly, we may edit this part out, but we're going through some copyright challenges with YouTube. So it's an interesting world because, on Twitch, you're not getting pulled twitch.tv, which is a streaming service, if people aren't familiar with that. Normally created, or it was originally created for people that are basically playing video games. But then it's gone into, with COVID, with musicians, DJs, but you still have copyright broadcast laws that you're trying to skirt around.
Yeah, which is like, if you're unfamiliar with how the copyright situation goes, it's basically like, if I'm a DJ, but I'm playing a Drake song, whether it's a remix or not, I'm not Drake. I'm not. Was it Universal that he's under? So that, basically, like, as an artist, Drake and his people, they want to make sure he's getting paid every time his song's being played out.
Yeah.
And so they have algorithms that detect the sound. They're like, oh, hey, that's a Drake song, and it looks like your YouTube account is not Drake. So see you later.
Right.
You're clipped.
Well, the cool thing is that I was finding is, and there are some record labels that their algorithm will find, not Drake per se, but let's say it's a B-level artist, an EDM artist, right? Not a mainstream, or not a big time. They'll flag the stream or the video and say, this is so and so. And rather than pulling the video and not allowing it to be broadcast, they'll say, that's fine, you can do it, but you can't monetize it. So anytime that you have an ad that plays during the video, that money would normally go to the YouTuber, the person who posted the video, right? Well, instead, they redirect that to the artist/record label, which I think is great.
Yeah, that's how we should be leaning, really. I mean, if they have technology that is able to, like, filter every song that's ever played and get money in the pockets of the person who produced it, like, hell yeah. I mean, in there, I'm gonna, as a DJ, like, find some room for us in there. I don't know, somehow give me like 4 cents or something. I don't know, like, give me a cut. But yeah, copyright stuff sucks.
It's crazy too, because I've done a lot of, we did it 2 weekends ago. It's been edited for about a week. And so I've been doing a lot of test uploads because gosh forbid, I don't want to come in Saturday and start broadcasting and then have it get yanked 15 minutes in. That would be disheartening. So it's interesting. You see the YouTube algorithm, and it picks up every single song that I played, that Kel's played, that Jake played, and you're just like, how, technology wise, how the heck do you do that?
That's so impressive.
And it's, and I'm playing like heavy edits, like with multiple songs that are in it that are mashed up, and they're still like, oh, this is so and so with Universal, and this is so and so with Capitol Records, and da-da-da-da. It's interesting to see it on the back end. So we're definitely we made a shift to be exclusively on Twitch, and I'm hoping that after we get done, we'll be able to rebroadcast it on Twitch. So if you can't catch it Saturday, don't feel like you're going to miss out. And we are going to have the sets on SoundCloud, and that you'll be able to reach that through glowinthedarkevents.com too. I think that'll just be a nice jump off point.
Have you been pinged on SoundCloud at all?
No.
That's so. Have they been chill lately?
They have been.
I've had
they
just fist fights with stupid SoundCloud.
Yeah.
I
have probably 8 or 9 mixes, and some of them are very mainstream clubby, and some of them are very dubstep trap, and I haven't had any of them yanked. Now I don't have thousands of followers either, so I don't know if that plays into
I've gone through multiple, like through my 8-9 years of DJing, I've gone through multiple SoundCloud accounts, and it's like so discouraging when your SoundCloud account gets deleted.
Right.
Like, dude, when my first one got deleted, I don't know how many followers I had, but it was a good amount. And then you like think that like, okay, well, my followers will refollow the next one, and like you don't even get 1/50th of your followers back. Like, and yeah. So, but I mean, although they do have other places like Mixcloud, I have a lot of my old catalog from mixes is up on Mixcloud. So that's good. We're going to be able to listen back to them on SoundCloud. There's still a lot of people that use SoundCloud. Yeah. We can jam those out, and those are good for running at the gym. They're good for parties.
I like it.
Good for anything. So yeah, man, I feel like we covered that pretty well. I'm very excited to do it. I think that, you slide that on over to me. Gracias, sir. It went really well. Like the energy in the room, like Saturday night, I wish that someone had just taken there was one extra person in the room who could just walked around and watched. We were like a band, like whoever's on lights, like I was just jamming on lights, and then Melissa's next to me just killing it on the laser. You're DJing, Kelly's on gimbal. It's like all kind of new stuff for us in a way.
Oh yeah. It's amazing that like we didn't have a major catastrophic something happen.
Yeah, that's true.
I had all the artists in front of us on Saturday, and I gave a big thank you for coming type speech and all of that. We're gonna do a pause real quick. We'll edit this out.
Okay.
No, you're gonna.
Oh! I was like, "Oh, you need to pee?"
No.
I've literally taken bong rips on my podcast.
Nice.
So,
we're sitting in front of everybody, and I'm giving the big, it's the big game speech. And I said, if you mess up at 55 minutes into your set, I don't want you to worry about it. We'll stop and we'll redo it. Right. And so, and I was serious. I mean, we had enough slack in the timeline, and because I wanted everybody to look good and sound good. Right. And, like I said, we start out, with talking about the mixes are live, and there's spots that, as perfectionists, we're like, oh, I wish that was just a little bit tighter, but, they're all great sets, and we didn't have anything fail. I mean, we didn't have like cameras crash on us, or lights that look bad, or lasers that
power going out.
Yeah. I mean, it was great. And so it was very rewarding. Like I said, we got off stage, and of course we had Kelly's huge mains that, we had angled.
We were thumping
that were angled up as monitors. I mean, we look like Zomboy up there with the huge old, they're called deaf drummer is the normal monitoring term, but it was cool. It was really cool, and it was an amazing experience. I talk about magical, and I'm sure people see my posts online and they're like, what is this guy on? It was extremely humbling to have multiple people involved that didn't get. I mean, they didn't paid. They did not get paid. And there was no expectation to get paid. Right. And the whole creative process was really cool. You'll see in the video, there was these really neat LED lights that we'd never used before. And so Jake and I had to kind of figure out, okay, where are we going to put them? How are we going to use them? What are they going to look like?
Yeah.
And they look phenomenal on film. It's like, and we could have really just screwed up, like put them in the wrong spot and just had horrible footage. I mean, all the stars aligned for it. And there's new friendships that came out of it.
Like for real, dude, those guys are so dope.
Yeah. And they want to come back already. Like I've been, of course I'm excited about it. So I've been showing them little teasers and we were doing some test streaming last weekend and Kelly and I were texting, and all of a sudden these other person jumps into the stream that, it's a private account. I'm like, what the heck? Who are these guys? And it's like, oh, it's for real. Oh man, we can't wait. This looks awesome. And they're all excited. So I'm excited to definitely do it again. I think that, and everybody that was involved definitely wants to do it again. And I think that hopefully people, when they watch it this weekend, they're like, I want to go see that in person.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think that's the next step once we get through this COVID craziness.
Yeah. I think that, I'm sure that anybody listening, even if they don't consider themselves like a creator or like an artist or any of those things that like we call ourselves or we try to be or whatever, I think that they probably know somebody, and they probably know somebody who it's like, that dude or that girl, like if they're not able to create once in a while, they go crazy. Like it's this outlet of like, it's this thing that you love to do. Like DJing, for example, like I love to DJ, but there's also like, if I'm not DJing or creating something, I feel like I'm not fulfilling myself. I feel like I'm going stir crazy. I feel like I'm just like, dude, I got to get this idea out of here. And I got like, because at all times my brain is just populating cool, brilliant ideas.
Yep. And
when you're just stuck at home and you're not able to do any events or you're not able to do any of the things that you've practiced doing, being a professional at, like you go a little crazy. So dude, I was super grateful to be able to just creatively do something, and I felt like I started my DJ journey, like I said, like with those Renegade parties, as my alias DJ Kronos. And I feel like, man, I felt so fulfilled doing those types of sets because I was like, man, this is, I can mix these songs and I could put together specific songs in certain ways that nobody in the world is going to do, but me. And it's just it's really fun because there's, DJing for a crowd, like you're getting paid at a club or a bar to DJ.
Yeah.
It's super fun and you could definitely make it your own. You could definitely make it creative, but there's only so many like edits or like playing with the songs that you can do before people are like, bro, just play the song. People just, and you got to follow the trends.
Yep.
You got to play what's popular right now. You've got to do the correct throwbacks at the correct time of the night.
It's very complicated.
Yeah, but it's cool
and exhausting too.
So I like to compare it to like, and I've probably used this analogy on the podcast. I don't even know if it's an analogy, simile. But essentially, like you're not going to, when you're like, okay, we need someone to play acoustic guitar at our wedding. Right. Oh, we know Steve, and he's the lead singer of the metal band. He'll fucking love to do it because it's a guitar and it's the same exact thing. Right. And you hit up Steve, and he's like, dude, I don't want to play acoustic guitar at your wedding. I don't even play acoustic guitar. What are you talking about? Right. Like they're very different things. I
actually had this recently. My mom, love her to pieces. She had a friend that younger. She's getting married. And they knew who I was, and we want Brian to DJ our wedding. Right. You don't. It's not going to be enjoyable for me, and I'm not going to do a good job. Honestly, let's maybe phrase it in an appropriate way. I'm not a wedding DJ anymore. I used to be a wedding DJ,
Wedding DJs are great at what they do.
Yeah.
Like, I've DJed weddings. It's a whole different side of me that you have to really like prepare.
Yeah.
And
it's really important. Mm-hmm. Because it's, quote, it's very cliche, but the most important day of the bride groom's lives.
Yeah, dude.
Not really, but that's the mindset. And, to have that pressure of not wanting to screw up. As pleasers, as DJs, we're all pleasers, right? we definitely we're there to please ourselves, as weird as that sounds, but we're definitely there to fulfill something within us, but we're definitely there to please the crowd, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise we wouldn't be doing it.
Well, if you look at a DJ, if you're ever at any club or bar, you'll notice that every song they play, they're taking a glance around. Every single song they
Right.
play, they're assessing the room. Okay,
Make
people
sure
are
it's
tapping
okay.
their foot. People aren't tapping their foot. Oh, okay, I went a little too hard into the trap genre. It
Right.
seems like maybe I'll let off on that gas pedal.
Right.
I'm just when you have the freedom to create something artistically, it's just so freeing. You know, I mean, it's when you're DJing a wedding, you're going to play Kenny Loggins' Footloose.
Right.
And it's
Michael
like,
Jackson,
yeah,
with Billie Jean.
yeah, exactly. Experiences. But yeah, so it's great. And it's also a story. I feel like a lot of the times if you listen, like, so definitely with like my set, definitely with Kelly's, like if you listen to any of his Brain Hack series,
Yeah.
like you definitely tell this is like right up in that line. This is like a Kel set. And
It
for
is.
me, it was like, I'm definitely someone who I'm like, if I have someone's attention, how can I tell them a story? Like,
Yeah.
how can I have kind of reoccurring themes that like you only kind of get if you're listening intently, you know?
Right.
And I'm pretty sure that the three of you guys have the same sort of thing. It's like telling a short little story. Like, here's what I'm trying to communicate to you in this next hour. But also you can dance your face off during it.
Sure. Well, and it's, for me, it's definitely energy flow, so I like to raise and lower the energy level in a room, and especially when I'm doing clubs gigs, I don't, like I said, I'm trying to create my own party at this point. So I've moved on from, I think doing, club gigs for somebody else, meaning top 40 hip hop type based clubs. But one thing that I know personally, and that I've with talking with guests at these places, is people, and I'm proud to say this, people know a Toasty set. People know, oh, okay, Toasty's here, right? And that's not being braggy. It's just how I present myself and how I present the music. And, it's what type of remix and what, when I play the remix and what type of energy level I'm trying to achieve at a certain point in the night. So, as an artist, if you're a live performer, if you're playing an instrument, you want people, when they walk into a room, not even looking up on stage or looking over into the corner and say, oh, that's so-and-so.
Mm-hmm.
I know who that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And get a good feeling about it, obviously, but a warmth, like, oh, that's, and that's what I've tried to do over my, at least my club side, not obviously weddings, but on the club side of things, people walk in and are like, all right, we're here. I can tell Toasty's here,
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be a party. So
I always love that. I always love when like I'm playing at like the local bar in town, like we're playing at Silver Star or something, and I'm up in the corner, and then like I'll have a homie just like I can see him coming up to me, and they've been there for a while, but they're like, bro, I didn't even realize this was you up here until I like listened, like they're just hanging out. They just there's some DJ of course, but then after a half hour, they're like, damn, this guy's playing the songs I like or whatever it is. It's cool because DJs are able to kind of we're playing other people's music,
right,
but you're still able to create your own style.
Yep.
That's just so freaking cool.
Well, and it's like when you're digging for music, like, the way that you dig for music and the songs that you pick out are 100% different than what I pick out.
Mm-hmm.
I will, at least in, people will hopefully be able to see in the sets on this weekend that, there are some remixes in there. There's some remixes of some popular songs. You have remixes of popular songs, right? That it was Prince. It was Erotic City, right? Or 1999.
No. Oh, it was Prince, but it was girl. Well, why am I spacing it? I don't know. It's a Prince song. It's so good though.
We'll edit it in later. But that's not something that I would play. I love it.
Right.
I absolutely love the track. I love the remix, right? I love Prince, but I love the remix that he played. But it's not Toasty.
You're right.
You know what I mean? And so, but there's stuff that's in mine. It's like you listen to it, you're like, you could dig it, right? But as a DJ, you're like, yeah, that's cool, and I can see where people just lose their minds, but that's not me,
Right.
so it's as a DJ, we're definitely playing other people's music, but there's definitely a flair or a seasoning, if you want to think of it that way, that people are trying to do.
Seasoning is perfect because we talk about taste. I mean, there's, you can, for me, I feel like, and I think we may have talked about this on that last one too, but it's basically like transitions, timing, taste.
Yeah.
Like those are kind of like your kind of three, like as a DJ, like, I mean, because you could be playing the hottest songs, but if you're playing them at 10 p.m. and the club doesn't get there till 11:30,
right.
like you got to time it all, and then your own taste. Like even when you're playing for a crowd that you're being paid for, you or like a like where you need to play what's popular right now,
right.
You're still going to have some taste. You're not just going to go exactly on the Spotify top and be like, okay, I'm going to make sure I play all 20 of these songs. You're gonna filter in your own taste, and you're going to.
Well, you can, but then you're just a jukebox.
Yeah,
and
DJs are not a jukebox.
And honestly, DJs that do that, they're just like, oh, I'm gonna play off the Hot 100. That's it, right? It's boring. There's not I mean, they're playing all the hits.
I mean,
right?
Hey, there's room for them. I don't know how I feel about that.
But I don't think there is. I mean, if you think about it, like if I walk into,
like a cop-out.
Yeah, if I walk into a venue and it's like, and I've seen, in my music director experience, I've worked with a lot of young DJs. I've mentored a lot of DJs. That's what they want to do. Like, oh, I want to be a hip hop DJ and I want to play all of the, the bangers. That's all I'm going to play. Like, cause I'm a hip hop head. I'm like, well, one, there's a lot of hip hop out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's 80s hip hop. There's 90s. There's golden era 2000s. There's backpack hip hop. There's so many. There's West Coast. There's East Coast.
More
there's
now too. Like weird like bedroom hip hop.
There's South hip hop, Southern hip hop. I mean there's so many. There's so much hip hop out there. Just like there's so much EDM, so much house. I mean, so to say that you're gonna be the jammin' 107.5, hip hop DJ, and you're going to play just those cuts, right? You're limiting yourself, one, and two, it's kind of boring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm going to, because if you think about it, like where hip hop music is right now, if you're going to play like the Hot 10, like half the night's going to be Drake.
I know.
Right. And
dude,
so
sometimes like if I look back at my set, I'm like, I just played so much Drake tonight,
right.
Which is, sometimes it works. I like Drake.
It used to be, Rihanna for me a couple of years ago. It's like, there's so many songs that I played, Chris Brown, you're like so many songs and like that you could play besides that. But I have no clue where we're going with that, but
just cornering ourselves. I was going to ask, do you think that when you first started DJing, how was your taste?
Horrible.
Was it like what was it only? Were you trying to play only songs that you liked, or what do you think you're? Because I think for me, when I started going into it, so I got into DJing because I discovered electronic music, and I'm like, holy mother of fuck! Like
right.
Nobody around me,
right.
like
I love it, and I want to share it with everybody.
To me, I was like, bro, nobody in my hometown. I mean, there's probably plenty of people I just didn't know them, but I was like, nobody in my hometown has ever listened to any of this. And I'm like, first thing I went to Rusco was my first show, and then I immediately like the next day, and I was probably just super hungover, but the next day I was like, hit up all my homies. I'm like, dude, there's this craziest shit. Understand. You have no idea what's going on. And actually, the shirt that I wore, the Wake the Fuck Up shirt for Glow in the Dark, I purchased that at my first Resco show.
Really?
Yeah. So
it's vintage.
It's a vintage shirt.
That's cool.
So I was basically like, I'd send it all my friends, and they were like, what? This is crazy. And then I discovered another one of my friends had just found like Skrillex.
Right.
And that was like the heat of it. But for me, my taste was, I was just like, dude, you guys have to listen to this stuff. It makes you feel just another, like this electronic. I think I just called everything house or dubstep back then. It was, if it wasn't house, it was dubstep.
Right.
And there was the first 3 years where everybody thought everything I played was dubstep. Like I think I got hired for events, and they would call them like dubstep party. And I'm like, wouldn't play any dubstep. It would be like just a mix of all electronic. But,
Right.
But the taste was really formed from like, as I started listening to any music, like once you decide to be a DJ and that you're going to show it to people, anything I listen to, I'm like, is this something that I want to show other people? Is this something that I think that perhaps maybe people haven't heard, or that it's something that's, because it changes over the course. You start like, okay, well, I have this song that will go with this song, and then I'm trying to get this sort of vibe. But at the beginning, it was all just like I would hear songs,
play it.
Yeah, dude, this they probably didn't go together at all. But
right,
what was your taste?
Oh my gosh, so I was DJing in high school. I started doing that because I couldn't dance, and I was kind of a nerd, and I classically trained piano and bassoon and trombone and all that, right? And just kind of a music nerd. And I wanted to be involved with social stuff, but I really was socially awkward. And so I got into DJing. And so I was working with a guy locally, Scott Netling, with Music More DJs, great guy. And I said, I need to rent some speakers for this high school dance that I'm doing at my high school. And he said, well, why don't you just, if you need speakers, why don't you take like my whole setup? So like all of his music and all that, right? And I didn't have I was 16. I didn't have a huge music collection.
Well, and that was that even before LimeWare?
No, yeah, there was no pirating going on. It was all, you had to purchase it. It was like Sam Goody and
Sam Goody,
all of the Columbia House. So you do a subscription for like 14 free CDs for a penny, all of that jazz, right? So, so I got into it and started doing high school dances, and then he's like, hey, I know that you know how to use the equipment. I need you to do a wedding. I'm like, all right, cool, right? So I started doing that, and I grew up listening to 60s, 70s, and 80s music because my folks their age and that kind of stuff, and really didn't. So it was about 2000. I just moved back from Arizona from a failed college career, and I was in a venue, and they were playing. This is in 2000 in Cowlitz County. They're playing house music, and nobody liked it. Everybody hated it. They're like, what is this stuff? And so the owners, they were pretty progressive. I mean, they wanted to own a nightclub, and they wanted to have house DJs, and that was their thing. And
remember who the DJ was?
It was Jeff and Micah, and I can't remember their DJ names. And I'm going to tag them in the podcast when it posts. But it was hilarious because I thought that they were garbage because I didn't like electronica music, right? And they weren't keeping anybody there. I'm going to let you know that those two cats were really good house DJs, and I feel bad that I didn't realize it at the time, because I'm in there and I'm punk ass 22-year-old, and I've had a couple of Red Bull vodkas, and I'm talking up the owners, and I'm like, yeah, we need a top 40 DJ in here if you guys want to like make any money. And it was like the next weekend I auditioned and did a top 40 set, and people stuck around and they made money, and those two guys didn't get booked anymore. So it was, I just booted them because I played garbage top 40, and they wouldn't, they were playing what the owners wanted. The owners wanted to have a progressive house based club. This was in Longview back in 2000. This was before the EDM boom, before all of it, right?
That's just, I mean, dude, you need an audience,
yeah.
Unfortunately.
And they were playing vinyl,
and it's even more epic.
Yeah, it was great. And I had no clue how to beat match. Like I was just doing the wedding reception fade in, fade out bullshit. I reflect back now and I'm friends with them on Facebook, and we chat. Hopefully Jeff's going to watch this weekend. I don't know if Mike will after hearing that, but
you lost me a job, you bastard.
Yeah. But they're both still in the scene, and do events. They've been doing streaming events. You know, they're definitely house heads. And so, so at first I was just playing garbage music. I was just playing whatever kept people there to drink, and then it allowed me to drink on top of it heavily, which is where DJ Toasty came from. So because my first night, well, hold on. It was the night before I auditioned, and I was in there and just got blasted. You know, I'm 21. I'm a punk kid. Can't handle my liquor, and bounce off every single wall as I'm walking out. And so the next night I walk in, and, you know, I'm hungover, and I'm like, all right, let's do my, you know, audition. And they're like, well, what's your DJ name? And it was something stupid. I think it was like, I'm going to sheepishly admit this. I think it was like DJ Blaze It Up.
Stop.
Right? Yeah. It was bad. It was super bad, right? And I don't even smoke weed.
But I bet you if you looked it up right now, there'd be like 7,000 DJ Blaze
It Up, right? Just on fire, right? So I told him, I'm like, yeah, I think it's, you know, DJ Blaze It Up. And they're like, no, you're Toasty, right? And so this was 2000, so, you know, 20 years ago. And so I just started getting into it. Well, then they brought a hip hop DJ up from Portland, and he was really popular. His name was DJ Cryptic, and Steve, and he was a great vinyl DJ. Great. And so I kind of got pushed aside, but I still wanted to play, right? And so I started really getting into house. Jokingly, I mean, as I pushed the other house DJs out, and then I started going to shows in Portland. Went to a couple of raves, changed my perspective on music.
This will change your perspective on life, bro.
Yeah, that's true. There's nothing like walking out of an underground rave in Southeast Portland at 5:30 in the morning and the sun's out. And I'm just going to tell you that it was, you know, it was definitely life changing.
Yeah,
it was life changing, and you know, so. I started really getting into house music, and I would open up the night, and then Cryptic would do the hip hop and keep the people there drinking, right? And then at the time I didn't realize this, but it was smart by the owners. About 1:30, I would do my closing set of house music, right? And it was horrible. I couldn't beat match. I was a very crappy DJ back in 2000, so just being a little humble here. But it would start people that were into house music, they're like, yeah, this is kind of cool. And the other people that weren't, they'd close their tabs out and go home. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's in the industry, it's called a soft close.
Yeah.
Hard closes.
Filters people out.
Yeah. Hard closes, you go right up to 2 a.m., you know, you're going hard, and you just flip on the lights and you tell people to get the F out. Right. So soft closes, you start about 1:30 and you either start playing crappy music. Apparently that was house and me. Or you start playing softer music and you bring the lights up slowly and then they push out. But so it was kind of how my role was. But I think that it gave me an opportunity to, you know, share music that I liked with people. And, you know, I go to a show on a Friday night and they come back and think that I was, at that time it was, you know, Bad Boy Bill and Richard Vision and, you know, all those DJ Irene, all those fast mixing type, you know, early 90s, late 2000s DJs. So I'd come back and try to do that in Longview, which it did not work at all, you know, hungover from the night before still. So, but I think that gets into, you know, some of the other things that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
I think
we did want to cover, I mean, dude, we work in the music industry, like mental health for any person who's creative, for any person who's artistic, for any person who drinks or smokes or does any sort of drugs.
Right.
I mean, like, so did you, I mean, were you just doing like the typical, like you were just partying at that time because you were fresh? I mean, because I was partying a ton at that time too. Like, I mean, I was doing a ton of the same shit.
Yes.
And it's funny because it maybe funny isn't the best word, but like looking back, it's kind of weird because in the moment you're like, dude, I'm living my life. I love it's so great. Everything's going good. And then when you retrospectively, sometimes when you're like doing a little better or you're doing just elsewhere in your life, you retrospectively glance back and you're like, man, I was kind of a shit show for a little bit there, wasn't I? Like I was kind of like hiding from some stuff I didn't even know I was hiding from. Or
I would even use the word beyond shit show. I was a piece of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it was, you bring up self-reflection and I've been doing this 25 years. I won't say quote real job. I have a full-time job that pays for the house and the kids and, the wife of 15 years and allows me to be stable. But I look back and I just can't believe that was the person that I used to be. And, I remember, I mean, there was so much partying going on, so much. And you get wrapped up in that everything revolves around you, that, there's the club that I was spinning at had a capacity of about 250 people. We were the hot spot in town, so we were packed all the time. At that point, I'm reflecting back now, it didn't matter really what we played or how we played it. We were just the spot, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was getting away with crummy mixing, bad transitions, yeah. And it didn't matter. And then I was, part of the party. I would start the night out with 3 other entertainment guys there, and we start out with a round of Jaeger, and the Jaeger didn't stop all night. And, then there was mixed drinks and, it wasn't good. Cause the problem that I had back then, and I've matured and a little bit, and have established boundaries and self-understanding of, who I am and what I need to do. I was just lost. I was so much into the party. There was one crazy night I actually invited my mom. She came down and she had some coworkers with her, some girlfriends, and she was up in the VIP area and I came by, and part of my pay there was half trade and half cash. And so, there would be sometimes that my paycheck would actually be negative. Like I would have drank more than the trade and what they owed me. Jeez. But I came up to my mom and I'm like, here, try this. I'm like, here, try this. And so like at 1:30 in the morning, like the party's rocking, and she kind of stops me and she says, "You realize that you've come by 14 times?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "And those were all your drinks?" I go, "Yeah." She goes, "So you've had 14 drinks."
Jesus Christ. Were you in your DJing?
Yeah.
How do you think your transitions were?
Oh, I'm sure there were.
What if there's a recording that you were forced to listen to right now?
So it's funny you bring that up. I actually we were cleaning out the basement and I found an old CD. So that dates me. A CD case, and it has a DJ Toasty Winter Mix 2004, and it is hot garbage. It is horrible. It is horrible. But at the time, I thought it was great. I thought it was great. Mm-hmm. So yeah, she kind of called me out. She goes, "You've had 14 drinks tonight," and I'm like, "Yeah," and all these people are having a good time, and it's. I mean, I was arrogant about it. Yeah. It was bad.
Like, I'm winning, Mom. Don't you see?
Right. Everybody's having a good time, and this is everybody's having a good time because of me. And that went on for a couple of years, and I will let the audience speculate on how I could have had 14 drinks and still been sober. So,
gotcha. Yeah.
So,
there. Yep.
You want to keep the party going, and when you get up to a normal human gets up to about 4 or 5 drinks, then you can't keep the party going. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot of that. And, I'm going to tell you that, you know, I was not a good human being. It was, you know, I look back now and, it's not something to be proud about. I know that we're jokingly talking about it, but, you know, that you just get so wrapped up in, you know, I'm a DJ and I'm throwing the party, so I have to be part of the party. And, I remember sitting on the front porch of my wife and I's apartment at the time, and I'm loaded. You know, I think at the time I probably drove home. You know, just bad decisions up and down. And you know, she just looks at me, and she at first wanted to be part of the party. She thought it was cool, right? She moved up and everything's cool. And then she realized that I had a lot of problems because of all the partying. And so we're sitting on the porch, and of course I'm in a inebriated state, you know, and she goes, I'm going to leave unless you do something different. So at that time, I think it had been like 4 or 5 years of just DJing and partying solid. And that's what my identity was that I was a DJ, and I was going to be a DJ. And, you know, I just cried. I cried like a little baby, because, you know, I snot-nosed in her shoulder. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. You know, I'm just a DJ, you know,
Right.
What else can I do?
Yeah.
What
All
else?
my eggs in this basket.
Right.
That's all I'm good for, whatever.
Yeah. That's all my worth
Mm-hmm.
is that I am just a DJ.
Mm-hmm. That's a
And
wrong thought. Anybody who's listening, wherever
it
you're at,
is.
you're much more than that.
But it was tough because there are so many things that came out of that time period, minus the fact that I had a substance abuse problem and minus that I was an alcoholic, right? There are so many skill sets that I learned from being a DJ and, you know, event programming or event planning and customer service and budgeting and event promotion and marketing, you know, all those pieces that I wasn't just a DJ. I was doing all these other things as well. But I was just a DJ that liked to party. And if I could have removed that, which I ended up doing, then it allowed me to grow into the other pieces that I had taken. And so fortunately, you know, she didn't leave. And fortunately, I had an opportunity to change careers and take a break from that aspect. I mean, I still had, I still had drinking and substance abuse problems during that transition too. So it wasn't like I just stopped DJing and then all that, all those challenges went away. So it was nice to have obviously someone, you know, obviously my family and others be able to support that decision that, you know, I couldn't be in that environment because it was toxic. It was,
Right.
It was fun. I was having a good time, but it was not good.
Yeah. I mean, but when it's like when it's always available, especially when it's like half your pay, it's
Yep.
like all you got to do is, I mean, we're creatures of habit, that's for sure. So that's a part of it, but it's also kind of like environment plays a huge role in our actions.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, and that's not to blame anything on our environments for sure, but a lot of our sternness of like, I don't want to, you know, it's Monday or Tuesday and you're like, dude, this weekend I'm going to stay away from that shit.
Right.
Or this weekend I'm only going to have 2 beers before I play or whatever it is.
Yep.
But when you're there and then, you know, people are bringing you shots or someone's got the goods, whatever it is, it's too easy to give in that moment and kind of forget like what your long-term goals of who you are.
Well, and any of those substances are obviously used to be able to escape what, you know, you need to be working on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I always dread, you know, being hungover because then the next day you're a slug, and you lose that day. You lose. I mean, depending on how hard you go, you might lose 24 hours, meaning not productive at all, right?
Yeah.
So if you're losing 12 hours of life, and one thing that as I have gotten older, at least for me, when I was younger, time seemed to just not exist. Like, party every weekend. There was time did not seem like it was finite, like it was going to end. And as you get older, time seems to speed up. So, I'm 41 now, and you have parents around you that are older, you have kids, that you have a daughter that's starting 7th grade, and you have a son that's in 5th grade, and it just felt like yesterday that they had water wings and they were in the pool. So one thing that helps me now, at least, which I don't know, it's kind of weird, is the fact that I'm aware of time. Like, time is super important to me, whether or not it's creative activities that I put my time and effort into, whether or not it's helping people out, as crummy as that sounds, work. If something is taking up my time, it has to be worth something to me. And it doesn't have to be monetary. Like the glow in the dark, obviously was not monetary. We spent quite a bit of money on it. I'm not going to get anything back from that cash wise.
Right.
Let's define that very clearly, right? But I am going to get an immense amount of friendship out of it, artistic creativity, future opportunities with other creative endeavors. So that's something that I'll sink my time into. People hitting me up and asking me if I can fix their computer, that's, my time is worth a certain amount of money. And so, I need to make sure that I'm getting paid for those types of things. But
I think that I like to remind myself, and it's something that, like, took me a while to figure out myself, but money is not the only currency.
Not.
In I think as an individual, it's up to you to choose what's a currency to you? What are you spending? What's in your wallet, right?
Right.
Because we each have different things. Like, at the beginning of the conversation, we're talking about how, like, I feel less crazy when I'm able to do something artistic, but it's something that fills me up. It's like when I'm done doing, like after I'm done with my set, I'm like, cool. It's not like, okay, I'm ready to die right now. Like, right. I'm fulfilled. I'm so happy. Like, I'm just enlightened, whatever. It's just like, you're going to come to a point in your life when you're like, what did I care about? What did I spend my time doing? What did I, did I really fill up what I wanted to do? And I think that a lot of us never have a chance to, or we never stop enough to see time and be like, what do I want? What do I want out of this? Right. And it's too easy to kind of take the treats, take the, like, hey, why don't you just drink? It could be fun just this weekend. Sure. Yeah, it builds up. I think that, thanks for sharing all that too, by the way, man, that's super great. For me, it's hard to quantify. I mean, I think once I have a little more distance because I definitely had my times of where it'd be a few years of, like, when we were doing those outdoor parties, like driving after drinking at the end of the night, substances at the end of the night, not wanting the party to end. And these things started to add up for me. Like, after a couple of years, for me, it would be like that hangover the next day would turn into depression that I didn't know was depression. I thought that I was my thoughts. I thought that I deserved everything that I thought about myself, like all these things. And we get caught in our own identities, don't we? Like it's so weird. Like we're like you've probably experienced, like especially when it's your hometown and it's this small town situation, people are chanting your name, your DJ name.
Right.
Like that's like this weird unhealthy thing.
It is.
Like and it fuels everything that you do. So if they're chanting Kronos and I'm like, what does Kronos mean to them? Well, I better make sure I'm representing that. I better
Right.
make sure I'm going ham. I better make sure I'm doing this. Like, and then for me, I started dealing with, like, on top of the depression, I started dealing with social anxiety, like while I'm on stage. And so, a couple more beers feels good.
Right.
Or a little line feels good. Gets you to zone in.
When I was down in Portland and I was, working for big restaurant group down there, I remember the first set that I did for the club, and this club was top 10 nightclubs in the United States back in between 2005 and 2006. And so, I mean, it wasn't a mega club, but its capacity was, I think, like 800, and we'd pack in like 1,100 people, right? And my first set was UFC had played at it was Rose Quarter at that point, wasn't Moda? Might have been Moda. We had the quote official, and it was official, after party for UFC when they perform or when they fought. I guess they don't perform. When they fight in Portland, right? There's 1,100 people in the building. 1,100 people. And it was the most people that I'd ever DJ'd for, right? And I just stepped up and I did a set, and it was all right. It was good. I mean, but I played the right songs at the right times and that energy level, right? So we had that night, and the owners, there was an issue with the existing music director, and he went on vacation and he didn't come back from vacation. So you talk about arrogance. Like, I do that set and then they get rid of that guy, and for whatever reason. And then I'm trying to remember, I think it was 3 or 4 months later, I kind of had to prove my worth, right? And so then I was the music director. And I'm going to tell you that there was a lot of arrogance, and I was drinking, and I just wasn't a nice person. I wasn't a good human. It was, I had this facade that I wanted to help people out, and I wanted to, help them be successful, and teaching younger DJs how to DJ. But it was all, look at me, I'm most important. Mm-hmm. I wanted to establish my name. I had all these grandiose ideas that I was going to become a touring DJ and all this other stuff, right? And a lot of that was fueled from the fact that I was drinking, and I was making good money, but we never had any money, so that tells you anything. It's again, it's interesting, you get in those situations where you feel that you are important, right? And you're important because of, quote, maybe who you are or what you do or how you do it. And at the end of the day, I wasn't important. I mean, as a human, I'm important.
Of course.
But in that situation, I was just another DJ. I was just another music director, right? And you can work hard at your job and do your job well. But God, if you're a prick to people, does it really matter? I was making okay money, meaning above average money, and I was the center of attention, and I was helping running the music department for, multiple, we call them stores, but multiple bars. You look back and you're like, does that really matter? Would it have been better if I would have been better to other people and not drinking as much, and home more often, and watch my kids grow, as infants more rather than just working all the time. And, it plays into, your mental health and how, your stability. And I think, when you are so wrapped up in what you're doing and using heavily, whether or not that's legal substances or illegal substances, and you lose focus of what is important. Like you're focusing on the wrong things.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, being able to basically pull your head up and look around and take a deep breath and see what is important. And I think that substance abuse and drinking too much, whether or not it's abuse or addiction, and that's a fine line for people. It's not good. And the nice thing for me is that I have made it through those different stages in my life. And the nice thing is that I can reflect back and say, I don't ever want to be that person again.
Mm-hmm.
That's besides the different skills and experiences that you get from different stages in your life, I can self-reflect and think that, like I said, looking back, I don't ever want to be that person again.
Right.
I don't want to ever be that Toasty again, DJ Toasty.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely, I think that if you talk to different people in different stages in my life, as an artist, as a DJ, as a human, I'm very much a different person in each one of those stages. And I don't know, I think that it helps you become stronger with growing from those opportunities. I have the one opportunity, which was on the porch at the apartment, and I need to do something different because this isn't working. And I, at the time, realized that, all I am is a DJ, which wasn't true. I wasn't just a DJ. That was a moment. I think that when the company that I was working for at the time closed that nightclub because it wasn't doing as well, and then my identity was gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they came to me and said, "Hey, we're going to keep you on, but we're going to have to reduce your pay because, well, we don't have this big nightclub," right? It made me rethink a lot of things. Like, okay, well, I need to go do something different. And so, those are all chapters in our lives, and it's helped me try to remember what is important. And like I said, looking back at, that story of walking up with 14 drinks to my mom, I would never, ever, ever do that again. Ever. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because that really is just like you said, if you talk to different people at different times of your life, they'd have a different opinion of you. They've met a different side of you. Yeah. But the truth of life is those have all been you. Those have all been.
That's true.
Like those have all been like part of your journey. But like the fact that you're willing and able to intelligently, like at this point in your life, come on a podcast and talk about it.
Sure.
Because you know that it's going to be beneficial to other people.
Well, I mean, think of your and I's relationship.
Yeah.
Like you and I first met, it was at a casino,
mm-hmm.
right? And you were the guy, right? And I'm nobody. And I'm coming in and I'm basically, buffing my chest out. And you're like, who's this guy, right? And like your and I's first interaction is definitely not what we have now. And what I remember about you at that point in time is totally different from what you and I have now.
So I was being strangled by my ego. I don't even know what it was.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. So for me, I've had Because it's hard, because I think once you get more retrospect, once you get a little more distance, you can look back and be like, dude, these are the definitive moments where it was like, you got to get your shit together. You got to do this. Like for me, I had a few years back where I was doing too much blow.
Yeah.
And I had a time where it was this weird thing, and I've talked about it on here before. And I basically, so I've never been someone who, like, I never got like trashed. Like I've never been like I was usually able to like say no to the shots, or you know, I wasn't everybody to, like, I would never get like super fucked up, but also, you know, there's the other things that involve that keep you not super fucked up,
right.
Of course. But so for my definitive moment was Shaylee and I wasn't even working. I was just out at a bar. We were just hanging out. We were having a good time, and it was just like people's birthday. I didn't plan on it, but people bought me more shots than I planned on drinking that night.
Right.
I go to get behind the wheel and I'm driving Shaylee, and I had blow. And so I pulled it out of my pocket and I did a bump before I drove to, you know, so I can drive better.
Right.
And like I did it, and I was like, I had this clarity of like, what the fuck have I made normal? What am I? I'm just looking at this wonderful person next to me of just like, what have I just made normal? Like she didn't bat an eye, because it was something like, didn't do it all the time, but she was like, okay, I get it, I guess, you know,
right.
Like what have I made normal to this person? And so I think something important that we could dig a little more into is how do we speak to, I mean, I know it's COVID right now. There's nobody who's DJing and doing bumps before the bar right now, but like, how do we, because what the ego does is it keeps your identity exactly what it is, because it's safe and it's good and people are chanting your name. So why would you change? And it'll protect you, and it'll keep you in these same habits, and it'll make you miss these wonderful, beautiful life opportunities of that light bulb of like, what are you doing, you knucklehead?
Right.
Like, or, you know, like, are you going to keep drinking, or like your moment on the porch? So I guess, you know, talking about just change, you know, because change is something that sometimes you don't realize it's happening until you have that distance from it and you're looking back. How you now at this age, speaking to not necessarily like your younger self, but like a younger DJ in the same scenario.
Sure.
How do you tell him to hey man, don't forget to see those flashes, don't forget to see those signs that are trying to, like, because there's this thing where it's like, was it like you what, like a, I'm trying not to say YOLO so bad right now, god damn it. But like the, you know, like those moments where you're like, bro, I'm here for a good time, not a long time, and you pour another shot, and like, but at some point, you know, you've just done your life doing that. You've just lived your life doing that. So how do we make sure that young people who are in the music industry, who are maybe not DJs, maybe they're musicians, maybe they're just bartenders who whatever, we're in the scenario, and it's very easy to fall into these things where you're living in the blur, right? How do we see the change?
I think that, I mean, for me, I really try to get active. There's two things, at least in my mindset. There's activities that don't revolve around, you know, partying. So whether or not it's going to sound corny, but, you know, going on a hike, or watching Netflix with your significant other, or you know, if you got kids, you know, for me, I was coaching, you know, so I coached soccer and I coached basketball, and it's doing activities that don't center around using substances, partying, you know, and you know, I'll throw it out there, the guys that, you know, drank, guys and gals that, you know, partied in high school and then partied out of high school, and then they're playing softball every week, right, in adult league, and they got a big old cooler of beer while they're playing softball. And, you know, obviously beer is a social, you know, lubricant, and you know, it's accepted, but like, if you're doing it all the time and every activity that you have revolves around that aspect of it, like, oh, we're going to have a 4th of July party, got to have cooler beer. Oh, we're going to go in camping. Oh, got to have cooler beer. Oh, we're going to go play softball, got to have a cooler beer. Oh, we're going to go play cornhole, got to have cooler beer. You know, there's nothing wrong with beer. I mean, I trust me, I drink my fair share. But I think that if you want to break free from that cycle, you need to find activities that don't 100% revolve around that.
Yeah.
I think the second aspect is that you need to surround yourself with people who are genuinely interested in your health and well-being.
That's a big one.
And whether or not, I'm very fortunate. It's a lot of work, but I'm very fortunate to be married for 15 years. So if it's a life partner, that, is super important. If you are single and you have kids, if it's your kids that you are building relationships with and activities that do not involve obviously partying. If it's being around creatives that push you and that have an expectation, that you're going to be at a certain spot at a certain time and they'll call you out on that type of stuff. So if you go out partying the night before, and I feel kind of sheepish bringing this up, but you go drink too many beers on a Saturday night, like I did last weekend, and you're supposed to have a podcast on Sunday, right? And with a good friend, and you text him, or your good friend texts you because he's really looking forward to doing the podcast, and it's something that you've talked about, been doing. And then you have to text him back at 7:30 in the morning because he's excited, he's up, he's ready to go. He's expecting you probably around 10, have a cup of coffee, get ready to go, and you got to text him back, and you got to feel like a little bit of a piece of shit. You do, because you got to say, yeah, I drank too much last night. I'm really hungover. I'm going to be a slug today. Mm-hmm. But what you should do is you should feel guilty. You should. Guilt is a good motivator, right? Mm-hmm. Because you let somebody down. You try to make it up, but you're never going to get that back. You're never going to get back the excitement that person was giving you at 7:30 in the morning. And then you text them back at, 9 and like, oh, I'm not going to make it, bro. You can't do that to somebody too many times until they won't text you anymore.
Right.
And so I think that it's two things. It's finding activities, and that was my, I'm sorry, Father, I've sinned session, but I think that there's two things. I think that there's finding activities that don't 100% revolve around using substances and partying and staying up all night and, the nightlife piece. And I think that there's surrounding yourself with people that help you become successful humans, and whether or not that's people that hold you accountable, people that you respect and you don't want to let down. It's not always someone that, is your mentor or someone who is, like a brother to you or what it may be, but someone that you don't want to let down, or someone that you care about. And so you check in on them and feel like I'm babbling a little bit, but
well,
I think that's how I way back when, this is, 25 or 20 years ago, I had a DUI, because that's just what happens when you live that lifestyle and you're irresponsible. And I went to AA meetings and I hated it because everybody around me was at the very bottom of the barrel, in their life. Like they had hit rock bottom, and not that they were bad people, just they had hit rock bottom.
Right.
And I couldn't relate with them. Cause I hadn't lost anything. Like I was, I still had, I can't remember if we were engaged or not yet, either engaged or still had the girlfriend, I had supportive family. I didn't lose anything. I didn't hit anybody. I didn't, fortunately, get in an accident, and kill anybody,
hurt anyone, hurt
anybody else. Right. So it was really hard for me to be able to relate, with the fact that I had a substance abuse problem, but I was court ordered to go to these meetings and I couldn't relate with anybody. And I think, not the point, because it was a very long journey. It wasn't like overnight. But things started getting better and I was able to manage, if that's even the correct term, things better when I started aligning myself with people that I didn't want to let down, that I wanted to have them be proud of what I was doing. And whether or not that was, my mom and dad, whether or not that was managers or mentors at work. I got in the mindset where I'm like, I want to be a good human. What I'm doing now is not being a good human.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to let these people down.
Right. Well, so I think those are all great because I think that when you could lean on other people, when you can, there's this like just magnificent power in allowing yourself to, just for a second, just for a minute, just for a morning, to see yourself through the eyes of other people, because there's a lot of people who probably think that you're incredible, amazing, like, and when you can kind of give yourself, like, don't toot your own horn, don't stroke your ego, but like when you could try to live up to what they think that you are,
right,
rather than just trying to like keep that facade up. I wanted to back up a little bit because, and I don't have an answer for this, so we might have to stumble through it.
Sure.
But and we are getting up here in time, so we'll get up here with this. But that morning after the Sunday,
yeah.
So for me, that's when the suicidal thoughts were the heaviest.
Yeah.
You feel the guilt from whatever you did the night before. You feel the guilt for like, just because you feel fucking shitty. You have zero serotonin. You have no access to
Sure.
any like logical thoughts in your head.
Right.
How do we transfer that guilt? Because the guilt for me, what I would like, anything that would happen for me would be guilt, shame, and I would just feed it back to myself. And I would sometimes I would have multiple days of just like, I wouldn't text anybody back, and I'm just like fucking hating myself and blah, blah. I didn't allow that guilt to turn into a motivator, because I think the beautiful thing about like the human psyche is guilt and shame, and that like just a little bit of regret. Listen, you got to live your life, and you're not always going to show up to every single meeting. Like, sure. You're just living, you're trying to figure this out just like everybody else is. But there is this, I feel like now I'm able to listen to like, oh man, I wish I did that differently. And I don't throw a pity party for myself any longer. I don't throw this, I don't stay in that. I don't try to like, oh, that feeling really hurts to think about, so I'm going to do whatever I can to not think about it. I'm trying to keep busy. I'm going to try to keep drinking, or I'm going to do a line, or I'm going to take a hit of weed so I don't feel it, or whatever it is. How do we take that morning after, or maybe even the end of the night when you go home? Because I'm trying to think of, if I was listening to this like 5 years ago, I think that I would feel, I would vibrate with what you're saying. I would agree, but I think that it would hurt too bad instantly, that I would find ways that I'd say that ain't me.
Sure.
So I guess, and this is what I'm saying, like, I have no idea how to transfer this, but how do we turn that guilt into not a pity party, not a, hey, it's like, don't hate yourself. Right. Hating yourself is not cool. Hating yourself is not okay. It's not going to help you. But how do we transfer that gift of guilt and shame to like motivator? Like,
well, I think that, I mean, we can continue to talk about this weekend. I think that's appropriate. Sunday rolls around. It's not going to happen. Feel guilty about it. Right. I know that, and I feel guilty about it because I know that you needed this as much as I needed this. I needed it for other reasons. You needed it for other reasons. Right. And so I think that what you do is you say, okay, you basically raise your hand and say, I messed up. Right. Like I know that I messed up in whatever aspect, whether or not you had too much drink and you threw up, on your friend's shoe, or you said something silly to, your significant other that you shouldn't have, whatever it is, rather than just focusing on, I'm a real piece of shit. Because all that's going to do is going to turn it inward. And you're going to continue to say, yeah, you are a piece of shit. And, we should have, have a beer, or
just reify that piece of shitness. Like,
right.
Don't do that.
I think what you do is you basically raise your hand and say, like I said, you messed up and you made a mistake. And because I care and love about that person, or I want to be a good human, or whatever the instance is, that you promise yourself that you're going to make up for it. Now, there's some things obviously that you just can't make up for. Like if you do something and it's a doozy, there's no amount of fixing that you're going to be able to do on it. Mm-hmm. But I think that a big part of becoming, I hate to use the word adult, but a productive human being and a good human being is understanding that you're going to make mistakes, that there is nobody that is perfect in this world.
We're all just trying to figure this shit out.
And I'm going to let you know, I'm 41. I still haven't figured it out. And I still haven't figured out what I want to do in life, meaning, as a job. And I have a fairly decent career already. I think that there's just, I don't feel like I've figured it out. Although people on the outside may look in and say, man, you have it all together. So again, I'll go back to, that point in the night where it's the end of the night, or, it's the 7:30 in the morning, you're cracking your eyelids open, and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do last night? Why did I do that? I think that it's admitting that I'm not going to say the cliche, admitting that you have a problem, admitting that you have flaws, that you're not perfect. And the only thing that you can do, honestly, to be able to address those flaws is to try to be better. And, whether or not that is the mindset that I take with the event promotions that I do, try to be better each time, whether or not that's establishing new friendships and relationships, whether or not they're business or just personal. How can I make this better? And I'm going to tell you that, drinking a bunch of alcohol and doing a bunch of substances isn't going to make things better. Mm-hmm. And so, I think honestly, it's a mindset, and it's a constant mindset of how do I do things better? Like, how do I get better?
Right.
How do, whether or not it's I'm shooting a basketball hoop or basketball or DJing or establishing, friendships, or like, okay, I did this last time and it worked out okay, but how do I do it better next time? But again, I think we're kind of bumping around on it, is if you make a mistake, if you mess up, as much as it might hurt, own up to it. Raise your hand. Tell the person you're sorry. Mm-hmm. Jake, I'm sorry for missing Sunday. Okay. And then you move on.
Right.
You don't get to apologize over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But next time that happens, it hopefully won't happen.
Right.
And in whatever aspect, whether or not it's that specific story that you and I are lamenting on, or other aspects.
Yeah, that's just low hanging fruit. I mean,
yeah,
it really was not a big deal. I
it was a big deal to me.
Well, I mean, it was as things were going in my mental, both of those days, it's not a big deal. But I love that you were able to take the most recent experience and put those lenses on it. I think that, I mean, for any like continuous listeners of the podcast, I'm gonna just push in the old self-love thing right here. I mean, that's, to me, before I discovered like caring about myself and self-love and like learning that I'm just living through my ego and I shouldn't do that.
Right.
Like I wasn't able to like even begin to forgive myself in the morning, like in anything you do, or it's like, dude, fuck, I drove home fucked up last night. I'm
Right.
such a fucking piece of fuck. Oh, and you just
Right.
like bury that in, and you just like, even the thought starts to hurt you. And so you just like do whatever you can, and not like, I'm going to try to go back to sleep.
Right.
I'm going to ignore my friend's text. I'm going to like, whatever it is. I think that, you know, this life can be so hard, and especially like, you know, we're a sack of habits. Sometimes we get caught up in the wrong habits, and we get caught up in the wrong decisions, and sometimes we even get caught up in just once in a while you make a little mistake, whatever it is. But I think that when you give yourself a little grace in the morning, you know, and own up to it, and feel that feeling of guilt, and feel that feeling of like, okay, I don't want to do that, and then maybe ask back to yourself, like ask back to yourself. Say,
Oh, that's good.
Say, what is it about that I didn't like, and,
Right.
and how like actionable. How do I avoid doing that again? And maybe the answer is as simple as like, man, I want to have fun. I want to have some drinks, but like instead of having 6 beers, I'm gonna have 5.
Right.
You know, like whatever it can be, to where next weekend or 3 weeks or whatever it is, when you start getting down that same path, you can recognize your own patterns.
Right.
You know, before you have to feel that, because the gift of the morning after is like, you have lessons that you can take, or, you know, but the thing is, those lessons are painful. Those lessons, like when you admit to them, when you feel them, when you experience them for what they are, like I would get caught up in the shame of it, and I would hate myself so much, and I would identify with that hate, and I would just like try to add more mean words to myself to make my, like, you deserve to feel this, you deserve to feel that.
Well, and I
that
think
spirals.
I think that, you know, and I wanted to touch on this, you know, because it's Suicide Awareness Month,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's important. And I think that, and I haven't shared this with a ton of people. I think that the challenge that you face is you're talking about self-love, right? I mean, you have to, and I agree. I 100% agree with that statement, is that you have to love yourself before you can love anybody else, or you can allow other people to love you. Because once you have self-love, you understand how you want to be treated and how you want people to love you, right? If you don't even know how to love yourself, how are you going to express and show other people how you want to be loved, right?
Mm.
So there's definitely that aspect. But I think that there is you have to be self-disciplined. And self-discipline for me is you have to, you know, I'll go back to the common theme of raising your hand, admitting that you made a mistake, right? So I will share a story. If you're listening, it's maybe a trigger. So when I went to college, I went down to Arizona. Parents paid for everything, shipped me down there, and it was just a free-for-all. It was a party. And I had a really good time. And I wasn't very responsible at all. And I came back. I'm back up a little bit. So my folks flew down, and we got my grades for the first quarter, and I had failed out of every single class. Okay. And so we flew back. I visited, and I was instead of, you know, self-reflecting and saying, how am I going to do better? And, you know, I really did mess up. I drank like a fish, and I was out in my parents' shop, and even though I wasn't directly saying I'm going to take my life, I was playing with a handgun in a way that that a mentally healthy person would not do, and basically was I was playing with a firearm in a way that I shouldn't have, and the firearm went off, and I have a beautiful reminder scar on the very front of my top of my hairline, where I, at the time, it was explained to me that it would have been a millimeter closer, and it would have not been as easy as what occurred. And I remember walking into the house and calling up to my folks because they were both sleeping, and I have obviously a wound on my head, and there's blood all over the place, and calling up to my folks and letting them know that I had shot myself. And I'm going to tell you that it's a very humbling experience when your father, you're I remember, I think I was 19, and your father is holding you in his arms, and it wasn't a fatal wound. I was very lucky. It wasn't beyond anything than a graze. And he's crying, and so it was it was an eye opener. It didn't set me on my path of being a good human yet. But it is for me, very much a reminder of what not to do. And what that not to do is it revolves around not taking personal responsibility for what I was doing. And at that time I was partying and not going to class and not studying and not doing things that were going to help me be a better human. We're going to make people that loved me, by blood love, but also other friends, to have them be proud of the efforts that I was doing. It's very much a cornerstone of how I operate. But it's important for me to remember that at that time, I was not being responsible. I was not taking steps towards being healthy. And I didn't take personal responsibility for the fact that I had failed out of school. And, that I had blown all this money that my folks had paid for. And so it, like I said, it didn't, after the instance happened and there was lots of doctor's appointments after that and lots of therapy. It didn't change, unfortunately, who I was at that time, which people from the outside reflecting in maybe would think, how could I have done that and then still just continue down that path? Right. But it's, two things from sharing that story publicly is that there is never anything in the world that is ever worth not being here. And the second thing is that there is importance in taking acceptance for the fact that you are making mistakes and realizing that you are making mistakes and how you can be better to not make those mistakes, I guess is the point that I'm trying to make with that.
Yeah. Man, that's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
That got to me, man. That's super powerful for you to share that. I think that probably more people than you can imagine can relate with something similar along those lines. Just that's
just one of them.
Yeah.
I actually have 2 attempts, but we'll share the other one for another day. But it's
maybe next podcast. Yeah.
It's
that like just imagining like you're saying the word carelessness, being when I mean, you're a very smart person now. I imagine you've always been smart enough to know that a handgun is the serious thing. There's some sort of underlying weirdness with that carelessness.
It is.
Even at that age.
Yep.
And as someone I've experienced my own carelessness with handguns myself, with my own suicidal thoughts.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think that a lot of times there's something here, like, I don't want to get like spiritual religious or like say God's knocking on the door or any of that. I don't want to miss anybody that doesn't resonate with, but sometimes there's signals, there's signs, there's things where it's like, come on, man, I want more for myself.
Right.
I want more for myself. And I think that any listener who has been in any sort of similar situation, like, you deserve to have that self-love. You deserve to say, like, if you get there and this has happened to you, as something similar has happened to you, you've gotten yourself in your own careless handgun situation. Listen to that voice that says, what's up here? What's going on? What am I doing? Do I really want this?
And I think that, I'm sure that anybody has been in that mindset. Not even depth, because, people's depressions are all different, and the amount of depression that someone's in is a totally different story than somebody else. And the amount of depression that you may be in is way different than, the experience that I had. I think that what we can't discount, though, is that it's extremely difficult and challenging when you get in that mind space to get out of that mind space. Like, you don't feel like anything that you do or say is going to fix what happened or what's happening to you. And for me, because that's a cornerstone of how I try to treat people, and why I reach out, to people that I'm concerned about, or that I care about, or that I love, is I know what it's like when you're in that spot and you don't, even though you're totally surrounded, like, I don't have a broken home. I have 2 parents and we were middle class and like, I didn't have a bad upbringing. And so all those things even then didn't make me, quote, successful in what was happening. And so I think that for me, because it's a cornerstone, and it's not just to bring it up because it's, September and it's Suicide Awareness Month. Mm-hmm. It is literally a driver for me. Now, I'm not a counselor. Okay. I didn't go into that field. It's just not who I am. But it does drive the relationships and the communications and the type of communications that I have with other humans. Mm. Because I know that there are times when people are in that spot and nobody knows it, and they don't say anything, and then they're not here. Mm-hmm. And they can't see it, but other people see it. I've had multiple people that I have, like, really? Like, they're gone? Like, why? Yeah. And from people who are close to not so close, just acquaintances, and you're like, but they were such a cool person. And I think that it's important to continually reach out to people that have been friends for a very brief time, to homies and friends that you've known for years that you haven't talked to, even if it's a, hey, how you doing?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, as humans, we all want to feel like we're loved. And it's a basic need. It's a basic need of mine. And I have a wonderful family, and I have wonderful parents, and I know that I'm loved. But when you have people outside of those types of relationships that make you feel like you are loved and that you matter, and that everybody wants to feel special,
Mm-hmm.
whether or not we're DJing and we're special, right? Whether or not, everybody wants to feel special. And I think that I honestly feel like everybody deserves to be, told that they're special and feel like they are special. We can edit out the the loop that I just did there, but
no, it makes sense, man.
And as humans, if we can share the fact that we care about people and love people, and there's so many obviously different layers of love. My love for my wife is very much different than my love for you and Kelly. And I don't think that there should be anything that's weird or awkward about telling somebody that you care about them and that you love them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, just, speaking on our friendship, I don't want to dive too far into it, but I happen to be going through, I have, dude, like one text could mean so much. And there's, just for example, you texted me, you've had times where you texted me just checking in every few days where, I'm going through a few things. Just because I have been vocal on this podcast and in my life and just with people, because I think that it's important. I have been vocal about my own suicidal issues, in the past, my own, I try to wear my depression on my sleeve because I really think that it'll help other people. I truthfully mean it when I say, like, when someone texts me and says, "Hey, I'm just checking on you," like, that's everything.
Right.
That's everything.
They don't need anything.
Yeah.
They don't want anything.
Yeah. Just checking it. Or even if, and I'm just the type of person who I'm open to talk about those things. So you can full on say, like, "Hey bro, I'm just checking on you. You good today on your mental?" But some people aren't that far in, and maybe what they need is just your friends, listener, maybe they need just to, like, "Hey buddy, what's up? How are you?
Right.
What are you up to? You watch this?" Like, or send them a clip, or you just contact them, just reach out to them. I think that, this life shit can get super hard. And especially nowadays, dude, suicide rates are higher than they have ever been. And it's just too high. And I think that these conversations have to be in the light. They have to be, the fact that people struggle is fucking okay. Like, and we have to be able to reach out to each other in whatever way that can be beneficial to that other person.
Well, I feel like, I kind of got shit together in life.
Right.
And I'm going to tell you, 2020 fucking sucks.
Yeah, 2020 is fucking me up.
From political to COVID to now we're in the Pacific Northwest, and we have wildfires all over the place.
Can't breathe outside.
Yeah, we have entire towns that are being decimated. The entire West Coast is on fire. I don't want anybody to feel like they are alone in thinking that 2020 is a hot dumpster fire. And it has. For me, it's been tough. COVID. I'm able to still work, fortunately, but I know that there's a lot of people out there that aren't, or are not working aren't working as much, and it could just seem like everything's going sideways. And I have what I think is all the plates spinning, if you want to think of it that way. And things are going good, and I feel like things are just going sideways.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I think that.
But I think that reaching out to people and continuing, conversations, and the fact that we're all, majority of us, at least in corporate sense, are working from home, or people aren't working as much, and so maybe they're isolating. I think it's really important to continually establish, and you're right, it's just a text, hey, how you doing? And it could be, I like texting you because it can be, hey, how you doing? And then, you give me a very thoughtful multi-paragraph. Well, you ask me how I'm doing, here I'm doing,
Yeah, well, the reason why I do that, Brian, is because I used to bullshit everybody. Because people I get a text as I'm literally physically curl up in a ball having a panic attack that's lasted 5 hours now.
Right.
And I would text someone back and be like, I'm good, bro. How are you? And now I'm like, you asked how I am. And, today I'm, I'll text back and I'll say, to be honest, man, I've had a pretty rough morning.
Right.
And here's why, and here's what's going on. But I'm doing okay because this or whatever it is. But also if I just sent back not good, you'd probably say I'm on my way.
Right.
Or whatever it is. And I've had, and I'm going through some things now, but I had a homie, that he sent me a message. I sent him a message back and he just hits me back with, how can I help?
Right.
And I didn't respond. And then 27 minutes later, he's calling me.
Right.
And I answered and he says the same thing. How can I help?
Right.
And then he talks to me and in some senses he talks and makes me listen, and I think that this fucking life for everybody can be super difficult. And I think that there's, back to that guilt and that shame. I think that we feel guilt and shame for not doing super well sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that especially when we have a facade of always doing well. And I think that the power behind any level of friendship that you have, I think that pushing against a friendship by being too personal is the coolest thing you could do. There was a point where you said, if I'm overreaching, you let me know.
Right.
I care about you.
Yeah.
And I sent even a longer text back. Like, you can't even imagine how important this is that you've texted me, and as just from my experience and I know not a lot of people are like this, and it's super okay. You don't have to wear your heart on your sleeve. You don't have to wear your depression or suicide thoughts on your sleeve. You can keep it to yourself. That's okay. Keep it to your close friends. You don't have to tell everybody. I understand. Right. But for me, because I've been vocal about it in the past, there's this, it makes me uncomfortable in a weird sense, because I'm like, oh, now every time I go through any sort of hardship, everybody thinks that I'm going to want to die.
Sure.
But there is this beauty of the true essence of like people fucking care about you. And that's the truth. And people reach out in inadvertent ways. So I don't know, man. I think that with suicide, with depression, with anxiety, with all this stuff, it's confusing, and there's this stupid, corny embarrassment with it. And that's just all part of it. But I think that I want to do anything I can to talk about it and make it not corny, and make it if you have a friend who's suicidal and you just don't understand it, that's okay. You don't have to understand it. But all you have to do is have you experienced pain before? Yes. What's the worst pain you've ever experienced? Think about it. Cool. Well, just all you have to know is that if you have someone who's experiencing suicidal thoughts, or a friend who's experiencing depression in some way, they're experiencing pain, and you've been through pain before.
Right.
And if there's anything that you can do to let them know that they're not alone, let them know that what they're feeling is okay, talk them through whatever they're going through. There's no rule book. This society that we have isn't prepared for how much suicide there is. We aren't prepared for how much everybody's depressed. How much, I mean, who knows how many more people are going to be depressed because of this pandemic, and all these young kids who are going to be stuck at home and they're not even able to hang out with their friends. And
Right.
there's just, we've got to be able to stumble through the conversations. And I think that there's no right way to do it. So whatever way that you think is the right way to do it, to reach out to your friends, or if you're the person who's experiencing any sort of suicidal thoughts,
I'm the frantic guy. Seriously.
you're the frantic guy.
The frantic.
Yeah.
I will. Are you okay? Yeah. Are you sure?
You sure?
Yeah. Can I see you face to face? Like, let's go do something. Right. You have to be, and you don't have that level of friendship, obviously, with everybody that you know, but you have to be that engaging, because you're right. You'll get in a situation where, they'll just bluff you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm good, bro. Like, no, are you really good? Like, I haven't seen you for like 6 months. What's going on?
Yeah.
Like when other people, when you have friends that make sudden changes, like you don't see them anymore, right? And it's not because maybe they're working or they moved away. They're isolating, right? And those are the telltale signs. You need to, push harder. I mean, I asked permission to push harder with you and I, and you're like, yeah, I love it. Let's, keep talking. But you have to, if you're getting one-liners back when you're asking pretty engaging questions, those need to be red flags for you.
Right.
And for me, I turn, because I reflect back on my one of my cornerstones, and I'm just like, okay, we need to talk about this. There's something wrong. There's not wrong, I guess, isn't the term that I want to use, but something doesn't seem to be 100% healthy.
Off, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel, you sound off, you feel off, you're making off decisions, what's going on.
Yeah.
And some people are going to talk about it, some people will open up about it. Some people will be like, I got some personal stuff going on and I'm seeing somebody about it,
Right.
and that's what they'll leave you with.
And I know I've already emphasized it, but the way that I talk about my personal experiences with suicide, the way that you just have, that's pretty uncommon. It's massively uncommon.
It's uncomfortable for people.
It's very uncomfortable. I mean, and it like you speaking about your experiences, just like, I mean, it brings me pain from my own experiences and just thinking about you as my friend. But I think that there's no wrong way to go about it. And listener, again, whether you're the friend or you're feeling a little down on yourself, whatever you're going through is all right. You're on an escalator. You got to ride it out.
Right.
It's going to be okay. I mean, there's no wrong or right way to approach this next thing, but don't ignore it. Don't you let that side of your mind tell you that you're not worth something. Like, that's some bullshit. And a lot of times you can have a friend who will just tell you a few simple dorky sentences, and it's enough to remind you, like, oh, fuck. All right. Yeah, that's true, man. I'm all right. I'm good. Like, I'm worth it, or whatever it is.
I think and it's a challenge, and it's hard, is wanting to ask for help.
Yeah.
Getting in that spot where, you don't think anybody cares, and I think that it's,
you feel like a burden, maybe.
yeah. And, oh, well, they've gotten married and they've got kids. And so, they've got their own life now. And you're right. I'm going to be perceived as a burden. And, we can talk about being responsible for decisions, raise your hand. You made a mistake, but you can also admit that you need help. And that could be in a multitude of different ways. It could be 2 weeks before an event production. You're like, I feel really overwhelmed and I need help from you guys. Can you guys help me out? And, of course, both of you guys were totally like, without even skipping a beat. Yep. What do you need?
Yeah.
And had I not asked, I would have been totally
I think that when we think of asking for help, I think movies or something, when it pops in my head, it seems of like asking for help means that someone's going to take you on in the psych ward or something.
Right.
Like asking for help means that you're drawing a line in the sand and saying that I'm busted or saying that I need help and I'm
broke.
crazy and I'm
Right.
incapable of doing anything. It's like, no, it's not that. Like whatever your level of asking for help is okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think that it's hard. It's hard when you're in that spot to have that awareness. And so if you have somebody that you think that you feel is off, like things aren't going correctly, then I'm going to tell you that reaching out to them and offering them help, and maybe even being, not frantic isn't the correct term, but insistent on that help. Like, hey, can I help you out with this? And they're like, no, I'm good. I'm good. And they basically disappear. Being insistent. And, whether or not that's, I don't know, helping around the house or mowing or, what happens when you get in those deep, dark spots is that, you're not keeping up on your appearance or you're, sleeping all day and everybody's depression experience is totally different from everybody else's. So, I'm throwing out antidotes that, taking somebody a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
I mean, it's things that if they're not going to ask for help, then, there's little things that you can do to be able to help them that will hopefully establish that communication channel in order to be able to start having those types of conversations.
Yeah. And I think that the biggest thing is if you're experiencing any sort of that is like, it's not who you are, man. It's not like your thoughts are not who you are. You're the observer of thoughts. And you, like, if you're experiencing these things, your mind will try to come up with reasons to justify why, and it'll try to tell you why you should still feel bad and why you should continue doing it or whatever. It'll try to be mean to you. And I think that if that's going on, you just have to say, okay, something seems to be off here. And you don't have to even answer that. You don't have to, but well, what is it? And what did I do? And blah, 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 and try to solve those things. Like, okay, something's off here. And then you can get present and you kind of look around and like, what's going on here? I think just, man, it's like, what do they always say? Like people who take the dive, like, you, the people who have survived jumping off the bridge, they always say the second they let go of that bridge rail, it's like they regretted it.
Right.
They're like, I realized in that moment, like, oh yeah, I was just caught up in that thought. I was just caught up in that thought. That's not me,
Well, and I think that it's important to be able to establish, for me personally, establishing a health check. So, one aspect that I still, I don't call it really a battle, but I have to be self-aware about it, is I really like beer, right? And I know that if I drink too much beer multiple days in a row, then I start getting negative type thought patterns, right?
Same.
And so for me, 2 beers on this night, and then the next night it's like 2 beers, and then we're in the weekend, and then we're having, okay, now we're going to have 4. Well, that's 3 days in a row, right? Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, oh, well, I'm hungover, and so on Sunday I'm going to go ahead and have a beer just to be able to take that edge off, right? Well, then I'm going back into work on. And for me, it's basically health checks, right? So day 3 of that, and that's definitely not a binger, but day 3 of drinking beer, I basically start throwing red flags. I'm like, wait, hold on.
Right.
Like, I don't feel good about myself.
Because you've listened to yourself and built that.
Yeah. I'm being negative, or I'm being angry, or, I'm being short with people around me. And, I'm like, okay, I need to take a break, or I need to do something different, or whatever the instance is. I I think that it's really important to set a health baseline, both mentally and physically, but definitely mentally, like, okay. And it's a lot of self-reflection, but it's okay, this is me happy. And these are things that are happening around me, but right now, this is what it feels like to be happy. And I have a baseline, and I have healthy relationships with friends and family, and I'm not drinking or using, and I'm going to the gym, and things are good in my world. Whether or not, work's going good or other things, right? Like, I feel good about myself and the relationships that I have and that what I'm working on. That's your baseline. But if you are, you have 3 days that you've been drinking, or, something bad happens at work or a relationship, and you're 3 days in, and all of a sudden you are reflecting inward, and you're like, okay, we talked about this earlier, I feel off. Like, there's things that aren't right. I'm not happy. And there's opportunities in that instance to, whether or not you've written down, this is going to sound cliche, but lifelines, right? Like, if I'm feeling bad about things, I'll go have a Saturday cup of coffee with my dad, right? And we'll go sit there and we'll talk for 30, 40 minutes, if that, or if it happens to be my mom, if my dad's not available. So it's little lifelines that I've established that, and they don't know that, right? It's not like I've set an expectation like I'm in danger, and so now I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
And same thing with my wife, with my kids.
Yeah.
Is I will set little things that I do when I'm starting to go down a path that I recognize.
Right.
And it's hard when you're at rock bottom, or what you feel is rock bottom. And so I want to share that with your listeners, is that all of these things I have established over a lot of years.
Right.
I have a ton of experience dealing with this stuff, but I think it's important that you set a baseline of, okay, right now I'm in a good space and I'm happy, and things are going well, right? And then you're able to reflect back on that of, okay. And the cool thing is, when you do that, if you get in a situation where life isn't good and it's outside of your control, right? So like work, let's say there's external things that are happening at work, you don't have any control over it. Rather than getting in a situation where you're going to drink or use or be depressed or stop going to the gym or stop talking and having those communication channels, realizing that the challenges that you're having in this one area are not able to be affected by you, then you can then really focus on the other areas and it allows you to balance out and make sure that you stay at that certain baseline, per se, mentally, when it's things that you can't control.
Right.
I will tell you honestly, with COVID and the gyms being closed, has been very challenging, right? Mm-hmm. Like I not that I'm going to, get strong and buff and beach bod ready. But there's obviously huge health benefits to going to the gym. And for me, going to the gym was a destination.
Right.
I have a hard time going on a hike or walking around my property or lifting dumbbells in my house. I have to.
It doesn't break it up enough.
Right. The personality for me is that I have to have a destination to go to be able to go work out.
Yeah.
And so
that's totally fine too. That's a lot of people like that. And
with COVID, not having that ability, that's one aspect of my baseline that I haven't been able to do. And so I'm going to tell you, it's been challenging, as with everybody that's been going through this. But I acknowledge and recognize the fact that I'm not going to the gym, and I know that that's affecting other areas of my life.
Yes. So you find other ways to make up for it. I mean, it's interesting you bring that up, because that kind of, the last couple of weeks for me, we got back and I'm a runner. That's a lot of my thing. When I catch myself slipping or I catch myself, I'm like, oh, okay, well, it's about, I'm getting caught up with those thoughts that I know take me down the wrong path. And I've built this resilient side of myself.
Right.
Because with time and patience and work, you can build those things up to where you, even in those dark moments, you have a little part of you that can remember of like, okay, I'm just getting caught in the current of things. And so I'll usually go on runs. I'll run it out till I collapse. I'll do whatever I can. I'll put on my motivational videos and run through my headphones. But we've had the smoke the last week. And so I haven't been able to, but what I've been doing is saying yes to every opportunity. I typically like to kind of chill with myself the most I can. I love my friends so much, but I'm an introverted person. I enjoy my alone time. But because I'm not able to run, I think that one thing that I have been doing is making sure I say yes. I'm like, my friend's like, hey, I'm going to come pick you up. I'm like, okay, yes, sir. Or I would avoid phone calls typically.
Right.
And now like I know that I haven't been running. I haven't been able to go out and do my hikes.
Yes.
It's very, like if I can go out and do like a 10-mile solo hike, I come back and I'm just refreshed and I'm like a newborn person. I feel fucking great. But there's so much smoke right now that I wouldn't even be able to get a few miles in without my lungs hurting. So it's interesting because I think as you're talking about it, I'm kind of realizing like, man, I really actually have like answered my phone and texted people back and hung out with friends way more than I normally would in this sort of like, little bit of sad situation. So yeah, I think just like listening to those signals of like doing something. And I really like what you said, like that, like change of scenery, like, going to the gym, like it's different lighting, it's different sounds, it's different music. It's a different, like even sometimes that social setting puts you in like a different mental state. I think getting out of it because, we get so caught up with those nights, those like where you're just like, you don't know what else to think. And you just think that everything that your mind is throwing at you, you think that's all you, but then you get in a different state. Tony Robbins talks about a state change all the time. And that's probably a lot of what that is. Like, even if that means you're like, okay, I just spent an hour spiraling in my own head. Right. Well, how about I stand up right now and I yell as loud as I can and I do 50 push-ups and I run from the edge of my living room and back and 25 times, whatever it is, get in a different state. And I think that has a lot of power to kind of spark that, like, who is the person in your head who even said like, oh, we're doing that thing again. Right. Let's not do that. It's okay, brother. Like, that little positive narrator in your head, right? Like feed him. And sometimes a state change, a physical body movement change is enough for that. Or again, like I said, like answer your friends' calls and they say, we're going to go get coffee. And you say, I don't fucking want to, but yes, sir. Like, and I like it, even this morning I don't like phone calls super early in the morning. Normally that's my time. Right. But I know right now I could use some pep talk. So I answered the phone call and pretty much I had a friend who's been very great to me. Like I said, talk at me. Right. And I got off the phone and I felt motivated as fuck. I felt great, so I think just, man, those lifelines, take those lifelines and you deserve those lifelines. They're there for you, and
but I think you got to, from the outside. So we're talking about self, right? But I think as an outsider to other humans, you need to let people know that you are a lifeline. Like, I would hope that, all of my friends, no matter who they are and what stage in life they are, would feel like if I called Toasty, that he'd be there for me, whether or not it's, I hate to say this, but financially, like if I was going through a hard spot, like if I needed $20 today, as small as that is, you could call Brian, right? If I just needed somebody to listen to me cry for 30 minutes on the phone, like that, I think that's, we're talking about a lot about depression, but I think that, as people who maybe aren't depressed in their current life, you need to reach out to other people and let them know that, dude, if you need anything, right? Anything, you just let me know.
Mm.
And that's within reason.
That's
I mean,
powerful,
I'm not, I'm not going to go, cap somebody for you, but I mean, I might.
Very stood by.
Right. I mean, I got access to a backhoe, but I think that's, you're talking about lifelines. I think it's really important it's two ways. It's not just, you have your baseline. You're like, you know what, I'm good, but I need to plan ahead. And if there's something that happens, then I need to be able to call so-and-so, right? You need people to reach in to be able to show you that sign that, okay, those people are my go-to people if there's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I think depression is very multifaceted and it's very complex. And there's a lot of different factors. And everybody's situation is 100% different from everybody else's situation. But I think that there's some common things that people can do, realizing that even if you have mild depression, you don't even. I think it goes back to just being a good human, and trying to, be a good person and help out other people. And you may have never experienced depression, right? And that's amazing. But you need to. I would encourage people that haven't been to those depths, that is listening to this podcast and saying, gosh, Brian and Jake are absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had any of those types of thoughts, right? I would encourage those people to, and it's not, you don't need to post on Facebook, hey, if you think about killing yourself, I'm here for you.
Yeah.
That's not going to help anybody, right? You need to be able to establish friendships and communication paths to other people that when they are in that situation and they do get to that point and nobody knows it and they're shutting down, that you are there to either help pick them up or be able to realize and recognize that they are in a spot that they need someone to kind of pick them up.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's two ways, because sometimes it's going to be like, in our situation, in Jake and I's relationship, Jake's going to text me and say, hey, I could really use a cup of coffee, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably going to be the 1%. I'm just being honest with, how I know things work, right? 99% of the time, it's going to be me texting Jake and say, hey, what are you doing? Oh, just hanging out. Want to go get a beer? No. Well, what are you working on? Nothing really. And me asking those questions and recognizing, okay, you're not working on anything. Mm-hmm. We're friends.
Yeah. I know if you're not working on anything, it's different. It's weird.
We normally like to go have a beer. Maybe I don't present it as a beer. Maybe I present it as, a coffee, because I know Jake really likes coffee and he still doesn't bite on it. Then I know that as a friend, that's a flag. Mm-hmm. And that's when you have, the person that calls you up 27 minutes later and gives you a pep talk. So I think that it's important to, I know a common theme, for me and, a lot of your core is being a good human and establishing those communication channels with other people. And, being there for people that, I don't know, we live in a society that's it's weird. That's
fucking weird.
That's all I can kind of summarize it as, because growing up as men, we're supposed to be strong, right? Not ask for help. Mm-hmm. And it's disheartening to see men that I love and respect that don't ask for help because they want to try to be strong and maybe need help, whether or not it's even, and it's not even like you're gonna do everything for them. You're just gonna give them a call or a text.
Yeah. Dude, I'll summarize it with this: as humans, we need each other, and that's okay.
It is.
It's so okay. We need each other, and that's okay. Like, it's so okay to like just say, I need somebody right now. If somebody's throwing you a life raft, it's okay to grab it.
Right.
And it's it's okay to, whatever level you are at, like whatever level of encouragement or help or assistance or whatever you need or can offer is okay. We need each other, and it's okay. I mean, that's the bottom line, dude. Man, this has been super great. This is like, I'm so glad that we went here.
Yeah.
I truthfully believe in my heart that this is going to help people. That it'll, I mean, even just having conversations that people are afraid to stumble through. We both certainly stumbled through it ourselves.
We did.
But listener, you matter. That's the bottom line. You matter. We've got to be able to like reach out to one another. We've got to be able to, especially in these times, like right now, shit is crazy, man.
It is.
And it's okay to feel whatever feelings that you're feeling. You don't have to feel bad about them. But we've got to reach out to one another now, especially. So, Toasty, I want to thank you for being my friend. I want to thank you for giving me something to creatively work on with Glow in the Dark.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for teaching me anything you teach me, even inadvertently. I'm always, dude, I'm the type of person that I'm just like that we were talking about, that DJ is every song he plays, he's glancing up, like who's tapping their foot. Okay, they don't like that genre. They like that song. They don't like 2010s. Okay, they want newer, whatever. We're analyzing. I'm the type of person that I'm learning from everybody at all times.
Yeah.
I'm glancing around. I'm trying to say, like, how can I be better now? You know, how can I learn from all of my friends, and you teach me a lot. So I want to thank you. And I want to thank you for sharing your personal experience. And I want to loop it right back, glowinthedarkevents.com. Also, can you just let everybody know where to find your DJ mixes and such?
Sure. So I'm on SoundCloud, so it's just DJ Toasty. All the socials are DJ Toasty. So Twitter, Instagram. Instagram, we have some kind of fun behind the scenes type stuff that's going to be getting posted this week for Glow in the Dark. DJToasty.com, but don't go there because I haven't updated it in quite a while.
Week.
Yeah. So, no, I appreciate, the cool thing with getting engaged with creative people is it excites me, and I think that it helps me be more creative as well. And with Glow in the Dark events and Jake and Kelly's involvement as well, it's just it breathes life into things that you're trying to create and do, and all the different perspectives and experiences, and the collaboration is amazing. So I really appreciate you having me on. Appreciate you as a friend, and I appreciate all the help that you did for Glow in the Dark. I think without your involvement, it wouldn't be what it is. So,
well, thank you, man. That's great. I had a great time doing it. I had a great time doing this podcast too. I'm glad we got to talk about these things. Listener, listen, man, you're worth it. Whatever you're going through, it's all right. Whatever your friends are going through, you just let them know it's all right. In whatever way that means to you, there's no wrong way to go about this. Just stumble through it, man. We're not perfect. Just do what you feel is right, and you're gonna be all right. And one last thing, relax your shoulders. If you haven't drank much water today, drink a little bit of water. Just relax. You're okay. Look around. Get present. You matter. And if it helps, I'm sending you a big old hug. Take care of yourselves. And Saturday, September 19th, Glow in the Dark. Come see us DJ and play some electronic music. Get some friends out. Hang out with them. Jam out. Have some fun. We'll see you later. Take care.
Knowledge is power.